Just as the few were chatting, Empress Fengchen arrived at the main hall of the warship, and everyone fell silent, turning to look at her. Empress Fengchen surveyed the crowd, took her seat at the highest position, lightly pressed her hand down, and calmly said, "No need to be restrained. I've just obtained the assessment criteria for this sacred assembly. You all can take a look and prepare yourselves mentally. Half an hour later, we will discuss the tactics for this gathering." Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up, and several beams of light flew into the hands of various strong individuals. Within those beams of light were scrolls. When unfolded, not only were there words on top, but also demonstrations of figures. Jian Wushuang frowned as he looked at it. The Ancient Wood Sacred Assembly, Assessment of the World, Infinite Great World, a vast world southwest of Wanlu. Internally, it was incredibly spacious, even larger than the Sure Kingdom. Assessment criteria. The first 4 teams to reach the finish line are the victors. So simple, Jian Wushuang blurted out. As soon as these words came out, many people rolled their eyes. At this moment, Elder Mukin came out to explain, "Wushuang, you can't judge everything by its appearance. You may not have heard of this infinite great world. Even 7th Tribulation Realm wild beasts exist inside. Moreover, since the Ancient Wood sect has set this rule, there will likely be many dangers along the way. We must not be careless. But what's the point of doing this?" Jian Wushuang thought to himself. He didn't say it out loud. However, Wuli seemed to understand and added, "The dangers along the way are just a part of it. There's probably more about opportunities. And according to the nature of the Ancient Wood sect, this set of rules hasn't been fully disclosed to us. There are definitely other rules that will only be revealed after we arrive. Otherwise, if we knew in advance, someone might prepare prematurely." This statement made Jian Wushuang somewhat agree. Crossing the entire infinite great world. The important thing was the process. It definitely wouldn't be so simple. Jian Wushuang began to feel a bit excited. Emperor, the Universe Master. Although the path was the same, the encounters would be different. That's why there were places reserved for the Emperor. Jian Wushuang was well aware of this. Otherwise, sending the Emperor would be akin to sending him to his death. The 3 great warships sailed side by side, quickly leaving the borders of Yu Kingdom. At this moment, the Empress began explaining matters regarding the Ancient Wood sect. Everyone listened attentively. "Before entering the infinite great world, we will divide into 5 teams. After entering, we must gather at the 7 starting points as quickly as possible. Otherwise, we'll lose to other forces at the starting point. To coordinate with each other, you will need to divide yourselves into teams." As soon as the Empress finished speaking, everyone began to make eye contact. On Jian Wushuang's side, the team had already formed, led by Elder Mukin with Wu Li, Zhou, Jian Wushuang, and Jinshin. 2 emperors, 3 half-step 4th Tribulation Universe Masters. Apart from Zhou, Jian Wushuang was familiar with everyone else. As for Zhou, he was a half-step 4th Tribulation powerhouse recruited by Wu Li and was not weak in strength. The rest sorted themselves out. On the Empress's side, naturally, she was accompanied by 2 Royal 4th Tribulation Universe Masters. The rest were divided into 5 teams. Elder Mukin led one. The Li family led another. A young prince from the Yu Kingdom led one. The Qingyun sect led another. The last one was a team formed by several small families. The tactical arrangements were superficial, merely surface division of labor. The real tactics, perhaps, would only be revealed after they entered the infinite great world. They didn't know much about the infinite great world. But the Empress surely knew more. Jian Wushuang also learned quite a bit about the infinite great world from others. The starting point and the end point. From what Jian Wushuang knew initially, they would be randomly teleported to the periphery of the infinite great world and would need to head to the agreed starting point on their own before finally setting off together. Then it would be the end point. Arriving at the finish line meant reaching the end of the infinite great world. They were already quite close to the Wanlu Divine Tree. Only the top 4 teams had the qualification to proceed to the periphery of the Wanlu Divine Tree. This meant Jian Wushuang and Wu Li had to help the Empress secure a position within the top 4. Wu Li glanced at Jian Wushuang at this moment, nodding inwardly. Yet, in his heart, a cold sneer echoed, not from Wu Li himself, but from a deeply ingrained presence within him. It was the opportunity that led Wu Li to become the universe master. When that voice sounded, Wu Li's expression remained unchanged. But inwardly he asked, "Teacher, is the end of the infinite great world still far from the Wanlu divine tree?" "Not far. Even if the Empress of Yu Kingdom fails to make it to the top 4, I can still take you to the outskirts of the Wanlu Willow divine tree." The mysterious voice resonated within Wu Li. Wu Li furrowed his brows slightly before continuing. "And what about Jian Wushuang?" "Of course. It's killing 2 birds with 1 stone." The warship swayed, taking a month to exit the 16 kingdoms of Qingchao. Beyond lay the boundless chaos, an unexplored world where the ancient Wood sect resided. Long before the era of the Celestial Maiden, the entire ancient Wood continent was shrouded in chaos. It was the divine Wood King who led the strong to establish the sacred land of the ancient Wood sect, eventually evolving into the 16 kingdoms of Qingchao and various major secret realms. Now, teams from the 16 kingdoms and major secret realms arrived one after another, exuding an aura as if myriad immortals were paying homage. The team from the Sure Kingdom was the most massive, with 100 universe masters in attendance. There were even 3 universe masters at the 5th tribulation. Then there was the Daughter Kingdom. Despite Yunji ascending to the 7th tribulation, the Daughter Kingdom did not abstain from the sacred assembly. They also sent 2 universe masters at the 5th tribulation. Throughout various eras, the Daughter Kingdom had repeatedly claimed the position of the Holy Maiden. This time they came with great confidence. Jian Wushuang, having visited the Daughter Kingdom before, had some understanding of its strength. According to his knowledge, the Daughter Kingdom dispatched the twin stars this time, 2 universe masters at the half-step 6th tribulation, just slightly weaker than Fengchen. They were the hot favorites of this sacred assembly. Yongheng Kingdom had already perished, leaving behind only 15 kingdoms. Even the Yu Kingdom couldn't make it to the top 10, but it didn't mean that universe masters from all factions were stronger than Empress Fengchen. On the contrary, Empress Fengchen's strength could rank within the top 5 among the 16 kingdoms. In this gathering, hundreds of universe masters at the 5th tribulation could all vie for the top 10 positions. Specific rankings would need to be verified in battle. Jian Wushuang was also estimating his own position. He didn't care about the position of the Holy Maiden, but he must help Empress Fengchen secure a spot in the top 4. That was his bottom line. With his current strength, he could indeed sway the general outcome of battles. However, facing some universe masters at the half-step 6th tribulation, he wasn't very confident. His strongest trump card, the Starry Sky Chronicles, allowed him to control the life and death of opponents, already comparable to a universe master at the 5th tribulation. But among universe masters at the 5th tribulation, there were differences in strength. Powerful enough to unleash 800,000 divine power. Even the weak could unleash 600,000 divine power. Both were his maximum combat capabilities. Fortunately, he only appeared as an emperor on the surface, so no one would be wary of him. Once he made a move, he had to seize the opportunity and attack the vital points. On the deck of the warship, the teams, each divided, gathered together, watching the scenes in the chaotic airflow. Flashes of thunderbolts, as if the heavens and the earth were nurturing something. This was a spectacle of all things. Jian Wushuang understood this quite well. The others, however, felt awe in their hearts. 3 days away from the ancient Wood sect, I still have some preparations to make in my cultivation, so I won't chat with you all, Jihu said, then gestured with clasped hands and left. Jian Wushuang looked at the figure of the other party, with no suspicions. Wu Li. This person's strength is extraordinary. Elder Mukin squinted slightly. He could see that the strong man named Jihu had extremely abundant divine power within him. Once it erupted, it would probably rise to 400,000 divine power. This was the pinnacle of the 3rd tribulation universe master. Any higher would be a 4th tribulation powerhouse. Wu Li said calmly, Jihu's strength is indeed good. I once joined forces with him outside the domain to kill a genius from a secret realm, and that genius was also a fourth tribulation universe master. No wonder. Mukin nodded. Jian Wushuang's face was dark. Killing a genius from a secret realm was something they could talk about casually. And judging from Mukin's expression, he wasn't surprised. These two probably had done similar things before. Of course, they both regarded Jian Wushuang as their own, so there was no need for concealment. Nephew Wushuang, this time we enter the infinite great world. We must be cautious of those strong men from the secret realms. They are quite crazy, basically all enemies of the 16 kingdoms. Since they can't occupy better cultivation environments, they have been eyeing the 16 kingdoms. Elder Mukin reminded on the side. Jian Wushuang didn't speak, merely nodded. The other party had thick skin. There wasn't much for him to say. Most of the strong ones in those secret realms had been expelled from the 16 kingdoms. That's why they held hostility. As for counterattacking the 16 kingdoms, that was somewhat impossible. The foundation of the 16 kingdoms was too strong. The strength of the universe master might be evenly matched between the two sides, but the scattered tribulation experts must be stronger in the 16 kingdoms. The strong ones in the secret realms hadn't experienced many eras. Their foundation couldn't compare to the 16 kingdoms. Take the 7-star sects, for example. In the 16 kingdoms, there were dozens of 7-star sections. But within the secret realms, there were no more than 10 7-star sections. That's the foundation, and no 8th tribulation expert had appeared in the secret realms. These were incomparable. Jian Wushuang felt no pity for these people, but he wouldn't antagonize them for no reason either. That would just invite trouble upon himself. However, he could sense a sense of superiority from Elder Mukin and Wu Li's eyes. It was disdain for the strong ones within the secret realms. 3 days passed. Several people stood on the deck, occasionally seeing some warships pass by. Various forces had gathered. They were about to arrive at the ancient Wood sect. Jian Wushuang also felt a long-standing ancient aura deep in his heart. It was a breath that the Sure Kingdom had never shown. Splash! The towering bow of the warship broke through the chaotic airflow. Gone were the yellowish mists that obscured everything, replaced by lush greenery. What appeared before them was a vast green world. The sky was blue, and the ground was green, incredibly fresh. If one didn't know better, they might mistake this place for a paradise. But it wasn't. It was close to the ancient Wood sect, serving as a buffer zone against the chaotic currents. On what seemed like an ordinary grassland, suddenly, a gigantic pink beast emerged. His body was immense, stretching for thousands of miles. It moved swiftly across the ground, eventually lifting its head, revealing a gaping maw with countless sharp teeth spinning within. After glancing at the warships in the sky, it plunged back down below. Only deep craters remained on the grassland, which quickly returned to tranquility. Jian Wushuang wasn't surprised. These savage beasts probably emerged from the chaotic currents, likely only roaming around here. Beyond lay the trump cards of the ancient Wood sect. No matter how powerful, touching the ancient Wood sect meant death. Unnoticed, tens of thousands of warships gathered from all directions, darkening the sky with swirling black fog. It didn't resemble a welcoming party of immortals, but rather an invasion of demonic forces. If someone claimed the ancient Wood sect was a force of darkness, Jian Wushuang would believe it. Across countless spaces, Jian Wushuang caught sight of a silhouette, an ominous one. Through the eye of the beast god, he glimpsed a grand scene at his brow. It was a colossal tree branch spanning several worlds, rivaling the size of a kingdom, with the ancient Wood sect perched atop. Rumor had it that this branch was a fallen offshoot of the Wanlu divine tree. It held great significance for cultivating divine power and nurturing oneself during tribulations. On the warships, many were visiting the ancient Wood sect for the first time, filled with awe. Jian Wushuang intended to discuss this branch with Elder Mukin and others, but he noticed Princess Jinqin beside him gazing in the opposite direction. Her brow remained furrowed as Jian Wushuang followed her gaze. She saw familiar figures standing at the bow of the warship bearing the emblem of the Shi kingdom. Among them, in inconspicuous positions, were several emperors. Shi. Beside Shi stood a girl clad in fiery red armor. Judging by her attire and the mark on her forehead, she seemed to be from the Flame God Kingdom. Jian Wushuang didn't recognize her, but she could tell that Jinshin cared about this. "Stop staring at him, will you? I'm still here," Jian Wushuang retorted in a strange tone. Jinshin blinked. "Sometimes I wonder if we truly united, maybe we'd forget about him." "Then go ahead and think about him." Jian Wushuang rolled his eyes. Elders Mukin and Wu Li felt somewhat awkward, but neither of them spoke. Wu Li knew Jian Wushuang, and this time they both had to make a run for it. Elder Mukin, however, didn't know. He thought they were just bickering as a couple. "Don't forget, you still owe me a favor," Jinshin reminded. Jian Wushuang nodded, replying, "I haven't forgotten. If you want to use that favor to have me kill the successor of the Flame God, we can discuss it." In the past, in the Daughter Kingdom, Queen Yunji had helped him by giving him Sword Immortal Tongha's token. Naturally, it was a great favor, but this favor had to be repaid to Jinshin. If the other party had any special requests, he didn't mind helping out. After all, it would be difficult to meet again in the future. There were many favors owed, and the sooner they were repaid, the better. Upon hearing his speculation, Jinshin took a deep breath and decided to return to the cabin. She had long been able to communicate calmly with Jian Wushuang, but she noticed that Jian Wushuang had been increasingly indifferent towards her. Watching Jinshin's graceful figure depart, Jian Wushuang sighed. Elder Musin chuckled and patted his shoulder, saying, "Nephew Wushuang, don't worry too much. This girl Jinshin has been spoiled since childhood. She'll come around." "That's not what I mean." Jian Wushuang shook his head. Al harbored no dissatisfaction with Jinshin's actions. On the contrary, he was eager to repay the debt of gratitude as soon as possible. After the holy meeting, the entire Yu kingdom would be implicated because of him. If the Empress could become a holy maiden, it would be manageable. If she couldn't, the days ahead might be difficult. Jian Wushuang felt somewhat guilty about this. Unlike Wu Li, who could even downsize or abandon his family, he had never aimed to establish a foothold in ancient moon spacetime. His goal was to become the universe master at lightning speed. Then, he would seek out others in the 9 heavens and 10 lands. He already knew Hu Qing's whereabouts, but he couldn't rush. Fan Tianfeng was already preparing to return to Qixin Temple ahead of schedule and couldn't be relied upon. He could only seek out others. Al had a good relationship with Wuxia, but he didn't know where he was. There were also Zhen Wuyang, Tongtian Buddha, Dongshang, and Wan Yen who he got along well with. As for the others, if he encountered them and could help, he would. These people were all brought by him from Qixin Temple. Originally, Zhen Ling intended to send him alone. One reason was because they had high hopes for Jian Wushuang. Secondly, it was because of Jian Wushuang's bond with Mike Shang. Since they couldn't defeat Mia Shang, they chose to avoid confrontation for the time being. Unexpectedly, they left the 10 great inheritors in one go. Among these people, perhaps some had their own agendas. Some even harbored a certain resentment towards Jian Wushuang. However, since they were brought to the ancient moon spacetime, they had to bring them all back intact. And there's Hu Qing. Even in the ruins of the ancient moon, he would rescue the others. The 9 Tribulations Tower. It was his greatest confidence now, with wise guidance. As long as he cultivated the utmost freedom intent technique to perfection, he was basically invincible. What was the ancient moon ruins? It was just the place where the Celestial Maiden passed away. According to Weiss, the Celestial Maiden was also his disciple. How could Jian Wushuang lose to a dead person? Al would return alive. He would kill Mia Shang. He would reclaim everything that belonged to the original universe. He would also avenge the grandpa with Goat Horn's grudge. Jian Wushuang stood at the bow of the ship, his gaze like a giant. The ancient Wood sect was getting closer and closer. Buzz! Countless warships suddenly stopped. In the sky ahead, barriers appeared one after another. Those were the formations of the ancient Wood sect. Whoosh! In the giant curtain, a figure appeared, followed by a full display of his form, a seventh tribulation's powerhouse. He was also the current sect master of the ancient Wood sect. It was quite a coincidence. Jian Wushuang even recognized him. This seventh tribulation powerhouse, though seemingly from the ancient Wood sect, had actually joined forces with Babidi. Who knew if Babidi would come? Perhaps he didn't see the opportunity here. Fellow Taoists, please put away your treasures and follow me into the sacred grounds. Holy land. Swish! The warship vanished in an instant into the sky. Countless figures stood densely in the void. Among them were several seventh tribulation powerhouses. They were all scattered tribulations, naturally unable to participate in the sacred assembly, just here to watch. Ha! The seat master himself has come out to greet us. Truly an honor for us. Several seventh tribulation experts stepped forward and exchanged pleasantries with the sect master of the ancient Wood sect. Then they all set off and entered the sacred grounds of the ancient Wood. On both sides of the barrier, the scene was the same, but the atmosphere had undergone earth-shattering changes. Jian Wushuang, upon entering, felt a continuous surge of life force within the branches. These branches came from the body of Wan Lu. Naturally, they contained immense life force. If they could be taken out, their value would be immeasurable. Unfortunately, they couldn't be taken out. If they could, the divine Wood King wouldn't have been showing weakness all this time. Jian Wushuang was somewhat interested in this ancient divine Wood King, once an eighth tribulation powerhouse. Although rumored to be weak, but at its peak it was definitely much stronger than the current eighth tribulation universe masters. After all, it was one of the oldest beings. Just don't know if there's a chance to meet this time. Following the sect master of the ancient Wood sect, they entered a circular arena. The seats around could accommodate billions of people. Upon entering this place, they were also separated in an orderly manner. Those who entered the central square were the chosen ones for this sacred assembly. A whopping 10,000 people were present. Surprisingly, 70% of them hailed from the mysterious territories. Only 30% represented the strong from the 16 kingdoms. The ancient Wood sect maintained impartiality towards both sides. This also indicated that, among the core forces, the current 16 kingdoms were far inferior to the strong from the mysterious territories. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a disparity. The two sides separated, with the strong from the 16 kingdoms standing on one side and those from the mysterious territories on the other. Is this starting already? Jian Wushuang felt somewhat taken aback. He thought it seemed a bit rushed. At least they should have been entertained properly. He turned to look around at the seats. Indeed, they had begun entertaining the watching strong individuals. As for themselves, they stood foolishly in the central square, waiting quietly for what was to come. The head of the ancient Wood sect and the current holy maiden sat side by side. Ladies and gentlemen, today marks the opening of the sacred assembly. From this moment forth, the rules will be known to you once you enter the infinite great world. With that, she raised her head, emitting countless tokens. These tokens fell into the hands of the attending strong individuals. Jian Wushuang also received one. These tokens were highly useful. Even in death, they couldn't be lost. After everyone carefully put them away, they waited quietly for the next arrangements. The current holy maiden of the ancient Wood sect was at the peak of the sixth tribulation, about to transcend to the seventh tribulation. Her status was as high as that of Xianxia from the Shi kingdom. Once she successfully transcended the tribulation, they would both be the leading figures of their respective forces. She slightly bowed, looking down at the crowd below, her voice cold. The sacred assembly of the ancient Wood sect begins now. Without saying another word, the boundaries around them began to tremble. Jian Wushuang stood in place, feeling his mind filled with immense power, his body involuntarily sinking into darkness. Everyone in the arena disappeared in an instant, and then in the blank space, patches of sky appeared. Above, Catchperson's figure was displayed. For a moment, many people stared at the figures they cared about. At the top of the viewing platform, there was a row of great halls. Inside sat various dignitaries. The head of the ancient Wood sect also entered this place. Now, there were over 10 seventh tribulation powerhouses gathered here, but they were all scattered tribulation powerhouses. Not a single seventh tribulation universe master had come. Originally, there weren't many to begin with. They were all in cultivation, unlike scattered tribulation cultivators who didn't have much need for cultivation and were thus free. There were quite a few seventh tribulation universe masters present. Among them was Sword Immortal Tonghe, familiar to Jian Wushuang. In the Shi Kingdom, there was also a super powerhouse, Shi Xiu. Within the seventh tribulation, there was also Lian Xing, which Jian Wushuang was familiar with. This individual held significant sway, with his status being the highest in the entire hall. Many approached him to converse. My fellow Taoists, how do you all view the list of candidates this time? The head of the ancient Wu sect raised his hand, and a list floated in midair. The names of the 4 candidates also appeared above. The seventh tribulation ancestor from the Yuck Kingdom, upon not seeing Fengxian's name on the list, wore a displeased expression. However, given his strength and status were at the bottom among these people, he didn't say anything. It was a seventh tribulation powerhouse from the Daughter Kingdom who spoke up, saying, "Just at the beginning and already making a list. Isn't that a bit hasty? Haha. This list might have some discrepancies, but the final candidates will probably be these 4. These were the candidates selected by the ancient Wu sect based on intelligence. The position of the Iloli Maiden must be someone from the ancient Wu continent. That position was the future core of the ancient Wu sect. Their background must be thoroughly investigated. If their background isn't clear, even if their strength is formidable, they will still be deliberately made to leave by the ancient Wu sect. The current list of candidates. 3 of them are experts from the secret realm, which has caused dissatisfaction among the powerhouses of the 16 kingdoms. Among the 7th tribulation powerhouses here, only 3 come from secret realms. 9 of them are powerhouses from the 16 kingdoms. The head of the ancient Wu sect remained impassive, having no way to change the situation. This list was the decision of all the elders within the sect. In his view, I was a move to suppress the 16 kingdoms. Recently, the Shi Kingdom had been particularly arrogant. Coupled with the emergence of a universe master at the 7 tribulations from the Daughter Kingdom. If things continued like this, it wouldn't be the ancient Wu sect's land anymore, but rather subject to the dictates of those kingdoms. This was absolutely unacceptable. If open suppression wasn't feasible, then manipulation behind the scenes was the way to go. Actually, everything depends on strength. The list doesn't prove anything, Liang Xing said casually. Naturally, the strong of the 16 kingdoms tended to band together. Besides the powerful from the 16 kingdoms and the secret realms, there were also some formidable outsiders present. These observers remained aloof, not speaking out. Wherever there are internal conflicts, dissent is inevitable. Upon hearing Liang Xing's words, several 7 tribulations experts from the secret realms showed no intention of refuting. In fact, considering their strength, the experts from the secret realms had a better chance. Because this time, there were far more experts from the secret realms mobilized than from the 16 kingdoms. Universe masters at the 5th tribulations outnumbered those from the 16 kingdoms by more than double. No matter how you looked at it, the final spots would lean more towards the experts from the secret realms. Senior Liang Xing, do you perhaps have a favored team? Asked the holy maiden of the ancient Wu sect, curious. She noticed Liang Xing had been gazing at the sky, probably favoring a particular kingdom's team, such as the Shi Kingdom. However, currently, the 3 universe masters of the Shi Kingdom mobilized for this event did not exhibit outstanding strength. Their individual combat power was inferior to that of the Yu Kingdom. Elope dwindled significantly. It's not that. It's just having confidence in someone. Lian Xing shook his head and chuckled. I heard that this time, the ancient Wu sect has brought out many rare treasures in the Emperor's assessment. I wonder if this is true. The head of the ancient Wu sect was momentarily stunned at the remark, then replied, Indeed, that's the case. After all, the Emperor is the hope of the future. We did bring out quite a few rare treasures that can help them quickly advance to the tribulation realm. While the words were spoken calmly, internally, They were shocked by Lian Xing's intelligence. This matter was only decided yesterday. Yet Lian Xing already knew about it today. It was likely that within the ancient Wu seat, people had already started taking sides. This was a rather frightening development. The core of the ancient Wu sect consisted of its supreme elders. All of them were qualified experts at the seventh tribulation. Although they were all scattered tribulation experts, the power of the ancient Wu sect lay in their hands. The head of the ancient Wu sect was not one of the supreme elders. It was evident that to become one, significant contributions were required. And these supreme elders didn't just appear out of nowhere. These powerful individuals were the accumulation of thousands of generations within the ancient Wu sect. If one traced their origins, all these experts hailed from the 16 kingdoms. It was a terrifying revelation. Despite the overt suppression of the 16 kingdoms, any slight movement would have information discreetly relayed back to them. For the powerful figures within the secret realms to rise, it wasn't an easy task. The head of the ancient Wu sect was well aware of this. But his heart was no longer with the ancient Wu sect. He was now aligned with Babidi. Ever since learning that Dylan had cultivated the technique created by Babidi and had reached the seventh tribulation, he couldn't contain his excitement. Perhaps Dylan could truly break through again and become an eighth tribulation expert. Comparing strengths of the eighth tribulation, the head of the ancient Wu sect was insignificant. He didn't amount to anything. Even a half-dead eighth tribulation expert could control the entire ancient Wu sect. If he were to cultivate Babidi's techniques and reach the realm of eight tribulation, he would only be slightly weaker than the universe master and even stronger than the divine Wu king. After some casual conversation, these super beings took their seats and began to observe the various strong individuals in the celestial screen. Following their gazes, they saw the scene in the celestial screen. Tens of thousands of strong individuals entered the infinite great world. Those with good luck were closest to the starting point, while those with poor luck even entered some forbidden areas, currently battling with those savage beasts. Among them was Jian Wushuang. The infinite great world was entirely undeveloped and primitive. A blade of grass was as towering as a giant tree. A speck of dust was as monumental as a mountain. Jian Wushuang and his companions had extremely poor luck, as they immediately entered a forbidden area upon arrival. In this place, a special life form at the fourth tribulation was being held captive. This special life form was entirely silver, with a body as tough as iron, and emitted endless divine power. The group could only flee. Although Jian Wushuang had the strength to deal with this savage beast, there was no need to reveal his strength too early. The journey had just begun. At least wait until they reached the formal starting point before unleashing their full power. Moreover, aside from the special life form, there were no treasures in the forbidden area, and fighting held no meaning. He remained calm, while the others were tense. Wu Li, take Wushuang and Jincheng and leave first. Juhu and I will hold off this special life form. After an incense stick's worth of time, we'll meet at a canyon in the southeast direction. Then head to the starting point of the boundless world. Elder Mukin, as the team leader, quickly arranged a tactical plan. Naturally, the priority was to protect the two emperors first, then leave someone behind to hold off the enemy. If Juhu were to take the two emperors and leave first, he wouldn't feel at ease. So, he took the initiative to stay with Juhu and hold off the enemy together. Wuli glanced back and said, "Be careful. With my speed, we won't need an incense stick's worth of time to create distance." "Got it." A green flame erupted from Elder Mukin's body. On the side, Juhu didn't say much. He was a brawler by nature, so why wait any longer? With a roar, he charged straight in. A silver giant, wielding an ancient wooden staff, emitted a terrifying aura. Two half-step fourth tribulation universe masters intercepted a special life form at the fourth tribulation, which wasn't too strenuous for them. Special life forms were not as powerful as universe masters of the same level but much stronger than those of the same level in the scattered tribulation. Two half-step fourth tribulation universe masters were equivalent to two fourth tribulation scattered tribulation experts, teaming up against a fourth tribulation special life form. They could fight and flee without Jian Wushuang and Jincheng, the two tagalongs. There were no more reservations. Boom! Jiuhu unleashed his full strength, and with a punch, he sent the special life form back millions of miles, then turned to Elder Mukin and said, "Let's go." It had been almost the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. There was no need to continue fighting. Elder Mukin nodded and turned to leave directly. The special life form had self-awareness and naturally wouldn't let its prey escape, immediately bursting into speed to catch up. But Elder Mukin just sneered with a single hand gesture. The towering giant tree on the ground instantly turned into a sharp sword. Then, with a lift of his hand, it directly charged towards the special life form. The silver giant's face twisted grimly as it easily crushed the blade with a casual block. "This is troublesome." Elder Mukin frowned slightly. His speed weakened slightly, but a huge purple vine appeared behind him, then wrapped around his entire body. Jiuhu's eyes lit up when he saw it. The next moment, Elder Mukin suddenly stopped his movement and reminded, "You go find Wulihui. I'll hold it back." "Got it." Jiuhu didn't hesitate. His speed erupted once again, disappearing into the sky in an instant, leaving Elder Mukin alone. Elder Mukin grinned, facing the crazily charging silver giant. He merely used one hand to withstand the opponent's attack. The purple vines on his body spread along his palm, instantly enveloping the silver giant. Unfortunately, when the vines wrapped around Elder Mukin, they became his battle armor. Enveloping the silver giant, that was a deadly treasure. Let this beast see what the true universe treasure can do. Elder Mukin stretched out his hands, then forcefully clenched them, causing the silver giant to deform under the pressure. Elder Mukin clenched his fists, merging the divine power within him with the power of the vines, causing his divine power to skyrocket instantly from around 400,000 to 450,000, already on par with the special life form at the Four Tribulations realm, stronger than many scattered tribulation experts. Ah! Terrifying red aura continuously erupted. Elder Muchen roared in anger. After his divine power stabilized completely, he dashed towards the bound silver giant. With just one punch, he caused the silver giant's body to dent, and its divine power began to decline. A single punch could harm this special life form. If they were to engage in a life-and-death battle, this special life form would probably not be Elder Mukin's match. At this moment, on the spectator stands, since they had not yet reached the starting point, the assessment was not officially underway, so many powerful individuals seemed somewhat listless. But witnessing the sudden eruption of Elder Mukin, they all perked up. To think he has the soul-shocking vine. Mukin from Yu Kingdom has indeed reached the level of a true Fourth Tribulation's realm expert. No wonder he's of royal descent in Yu Kingdom. If I could obtain this soul-shocking vine, I could also unleash such power. Many people showed envy towards the soul-shocking vine on Mukin's body, especially the strong individuals within the secret realm. Their resources were already scarce. Now seeing a strong individual of royal descent from Yu Kingdom possessing the soul-shocking vine, they were extremely jealous. Humph, it may be his for now, but it's not guaranteed in the future. There are super strong individuals from my giant sea secret realm around him. A powerful figure from the realm muttered with a sinister tone. This stirred discontent among many strong figures from the 16 kingdoms. But regardless of their dissatisfaction, the fact remained true. Elder Mukin, engaged in battle, acted ruthlessly and decisively, causing the silver giant to retreat continuously. His divine power dropped to around 400,000. If the fight continued, he might very well be slain by Elder Mukin. This particular entity wasn't foolish. Unable to gain an advantage, it could only retreat. Voluntarily. If not for having a mission at hand, Elder Mukin wouldn't have been so willing to let the opponent leave. Beasts will be beasts. Elder Mukin sneered coldly, retracting the soul-shocking vine. Just as he was about to leave, he noticed several auras heading in his direction. Elder Mukin's expression turned grave. There was an aura from a Universe Master at the Fourth Tribulation, and 2 Universe Masters at the Third Tribulation. Their divine power was around 350,000 each. The Universe Master at the Fourth Tribulation had a divine power of 500,000. Encountering them would not make for an easy battle. Go! Elder Mukin first concealed his aura, then burst out at the fastest speed towards the rendezvous point. However, just as he moved, 3 auras descended upon him. The auras converged, and 3 burly figures stood tall in the air. The leader had the head of a wolf and the body of a man, while the others looked almost identical, with dense blue fur swaying in the wind. TSK, seems like it's a strong man from the kingdom of you. Al has the soul-shocking vine. The leader, with the head of a wolf, was a 4th tribulation expert. However, he was particularly interested in the soul-shocking vine on Elder Mukin, because treasures like this were almost non-existent even for 4th tribulation universe masters in the secret realms. If he could obtain it, this trip to the holy meeting would not have been in vain. The treasures of the sacred assembly needed to be seized. Even at the core of the infinite great world, the chance of encountering treasures was slim, and to seize them required the prowess of a 5th tribulation universe master. That was a matter for those of their caliber, the 4th tribulation powerhouses. It was more prudent to plunder the treasures from other strongmen. The battles among the saints were chaotic. The forces behind them couldn't intervene in the chaos. That's why these 3 powerhouses dared to chase down Elder Mukin relentlessly. Catch up to him. Yes. 3 auras tore through the sky, quickly catching up to Elder Mukin. Sensing the approaching auras, Elder Mukin had no choice but to halt his steps. At the same time, he was also communicating with Jian Wushuang and the others through telepathy, calculating his own strength and that of his companions. Could they handle it? This time, they were truly unlucky. First, they encountered a special life form at the 4th tribulation realm, and now they encountered a powerhouse within the secret realm. If they were experts from the 16 kingdoms, it would have been manageable. They tended to hold back and wouldn't act at this moment. But unfortunately, they encountered a powerhouse from within the secret realm. Moreover, upon seeing the opponent's appearance, Elder Mukin's heart sank. The celestial wolf secret realm. After identifying the opponent's identity, Elder Mukin immediately relayed this information to Wu Li. Wu Li, who had already escaped the vicinity with Jian Wushuang and the others, had reached a valley and was currently waiting for Elder Mukin to arrive. Unexpectedly, they received even more challenging news. What should we do? Wu Li furrowed his brow. Jian Wushuang, upon learning of it, shook his head silently. Now was not the time to act. They hadn't even reached the main camp yet. So acting now meant either dealing with it discreetly without revealing their strength or abandoning Elder Mukin. After much deliberation, Elder Mukin had been relatively kind to him, so abandoning him like this didn't sit well. But their current situation wasn't truly exploring a mysterious realm. They were in the midst of the Sacred Assembly's assessment world. Countless eyes from the outside world were watching. Imperial Uncle must be rescued. What are you hesitating for? Princess Xianxia grew impatient. It was one thing if it were just an emperor like Jian Wushuang, but why were 2 half-step 4th tribulation universe masters hesitating here? Upon hearing this, Wu Li felt awkward. Princess, things aren't so simple. The other party is a wolf king from the celestial wolf secret realm. A half-step 4th tribulation universe master with a divine power of up to 500,000. None of us, even if we join forces, are a match for them. Moreover, it's not just one person. There are also 2 universe masters with a divine power of 350,000 each. Rushing over would not only fail to help Brother Mukin, but also distract him. Third uncle is right, Xianxia. We can't act recklessly in this matter. Jian Wushuang chimed in to reassure. Jihu was just a random teammate. Naturally, he didn't care much. It would be best not to go at all. However, Princess Xianxia paid no heed to these concerns and directly took out a communication token, starting to transmit a message to the Empress. Seeing this, the others quickly intervened. Princess, we're not refusing to rescue him. There's no need to trouble Her Majesty. Seeing this, Wu Li could only relent. He knew Jian Wushuang's strength was formidable, with at least 400,000 units of divine power. And then there was Jihu, whose strength also exceeded 400,000. With himself added, they could manage a fight. But they had all left. What about Princess Xianxia? The thoughts of the 3 were all the same. At this moment, Jian Wushuang broke the deadlock, suggesting, "How about this? Juhu and I will go. Although my divine power might not be sufficient, I'm confident in my speed. Then it can only be so. Wu Li originally planned to take Juhu with him, but he didn't expect Jian Wushuang to intervene. This was fine too. It would also be an opportunity to probe Jian Wushuang's capabilities. The reason Jian Wushuang took charge was mainly to avoid wasting time. If they all went together later, who knows what might happen. It's better for him to take Juhu along. Jian Wushuang's aura surged as he calmly said, "Senior Juhu, let's set off." Boom! The two shot straight into the sky, heading towards the direction they had just come from. In just a few breaths, they sensed a tremendous commotion coming from the sky ahead. The entire sky was torn apart, and within the dark cracks, the fierce astral winds changed the color of the ground. "Elder Mukin, we're here." Swish! Jian Wushuang and Juhu arrived almost simultaneously, directly blocking the two universe masters of the third tribulation realm. "Is it them?" Juhu's gaze shifted as he saw these three formidable beings. The strong figures of the celestial wolf secret realm also recognized Juhu. Speaking of which, Juhu also hailed from a secret realm, just not on the ancient Wood continent. He knew these powerful individuals from the celestial wolf secret realm as well. "Tanlang, didn't expect to see you here at the sacred assembly." Juhu threw a punch, directly sending one of the third tribulation universe masters flying. Then he arrived beside Elder Mukin, joining forces to resist the fourth tribulation powerhouse. Tanlang was the universe master at the fourth tribulations, with a formidable divine power of up to 500,000, standing arrogantly in the void and attacking ruthlessly. "Juhu, I never expected you to join the Yu Kingdom," Tanlang replied coldly. Seeing that both sides were acquainted, Elder Mukin spoke up. "Dao friend, since we have not yet reached the main camp, why don't we each retreat? There's no need for hostility." At this moment, avoiding a battle was the wisest choice. Otherwise, they would be the ones at a disadvantage. "Haha, before seeing Juhu, if you had said that, I might have given your Yu Kingdom some face. But now, it's impossible." Tanlang turned to his two subordinates and ordered, "You two, hold off that kid with the sword on his back. Leave the rest to me." Although Jian Wushuang's aura erupted, others could only perceive him as a universe master of the third tribulations. Thus, Tanlang regarded him as such, unaware that he was an emperor. Seeing this, Elder Mukin reminded, "Nephew Wushuang, if you're not a match, retreat first. These beasts can't threaten me. Then stop talking nonsense." Tanlang extended his sharp claws and launched a direct attack. Juhu and Elder Mukin roared angrily, rushing forward together. In fact, Elder Mukin's earlier words were just polite. He knew Jian Wushuang's strength. But Juhu was unaware. He only knew that Jian Wushuang might be the strongest emperor of the ancient Wood continent, comparable to a universe master. Preparations had been made for the imminent rescue of Jian Wushuang. Even while contending with Tanlang, their gaze remained fixed on Jian Wushuang's safety. They were facing two universe masters with divine power of 350,000 each. Jian Wushuang stood in the void, slowly raising his hand to grasp the Wanjie sword behind him. At that moment, the void trembled. The nearby battle groups slowed down. Even Elder Mukin, knowing Jian Wushuang's formidable strength, couldn't help but marvel at this moment. Juhu and Tanlang were stunned on the spot, momentarily forgetting they were still in combat. The shock of Jian Wushuang drawing his sword was too great. In the sacred grounds of the ancient Wood sect, the few strong observers watching Jian Wushuang remained calm. Only Lian Xing seemed somewhat unsettled. He hadn't expected Jian Wushuang to use the Wanjie sword so quickly. The Wanjie sword was even more powerful than a divine tier sword blank. To use the Wanjie sword to kill two wolf people with around 350,000 divine power each seemed like overkill. Even the weakest puppets Jian Wushuang defeated before had 500,000 divine power. Jian Wushuang could easily slay any universe master up to the fourth tribulation, regardless of their divine power. Using the Wanjie sword against two universe masters at the third tribulation seemed somewhat extravagant, but Jian Wushuang didn't care. The Wanjie sword had yet to taste blood. This was also an opportunity. For two universe masters with 350,000 divine power, each to be cut down by his Wuxia sword was a sign of respect for them. In the trembling void, the two wolf-head experts had no idea what kind of opponent they were facing. Tisk, a greenhorn? One of them with red fur around his neck sneered, launching an attack with his sharp claws directly aimed at Jian Wushuang's face. At that moment, Jian Wushuang drew the Wuxia sword directly and slashed out. The entire void fell silent. The wolf-headed strongman with red fur didn't even feel the power of the Wuxia sword. His eyes lost their color. Fallen. Tanlong's expression changed drastically. Jian Wushuang's strength was even greater than he had imagined. He had killed a 350,000 divine power strongman with a single sword strike. Even he couldn't accomplish it. This time, they had intended to snatch the opponent's treasure, but instead, one of their own allies perished first. What a mess! The other universe master at the third tribulation hadn't yet grasped what had happened. Standing still, bewildered. Jian Wushuang, however, struck once more. Tanlang reacted this time, swiftly disappearing and reappearing beside his companion. Unable to pull them away in time, they could only viciously kick their subordinate out of the range of the sword slash. Mere evasion was futile, especially against Jian Wushuang's sword, which was anything but slow. Swish! The sword shadows twisted, still landing on the neck of that universe master at the third tribulation. A sword to confer nobility. A splendid bloodline burst instantly. You! Tanlang was completely furious, ready to strike at Jian Wushuang. Elder Mukin and Jihu also reacted, arriving beside Jian Wushuang, facing Tanlang together. Two swords, slaying two universe masters at the third tribulation. And they hadn't even revealed their true divine power yet. This left Tanlang somewhat unable to fathom Jian Wushuang. Elder Mukin's divine power exceeded 400,000, and Jihu was nearly the same. They just lacked a special treasure like the soul-shocking vine. Now, with Jian Wushuang added into the mix, even if Tanlang had a trick up their sleeve, they dared not linger in the fight. Just as Elder Mukin had said, they hadn't reached the true starting point yet. Why exert so much effort? Humph! You got lucky this time. Tanlang snorted coldly, then turned around and left. Jian Wushuang and the others naturally didn't bother to chase after him. Thus, the Celestial Wolf Secret Realm lost two powerful individuals. However, this kind of loss wasn't considered too significant. The real cruelty lay ahead. For now, it was just a minor skirmish. Having solved the predicament, Elder Mukin breathed a sigh of relief. Wushuang, your strength seems to have increased a lot. Elder Mukin's eyes held some envy. An emperor so powerful. As long as Jian Wushuang reached the Tribulation Realm, there was no need to suppress his realm. He could cross 3 tribulations in a row and become the master of the universe. He could even cross 4 tribulations. Throughout various eras, there were plenty of such super geniuses. Some even crossed 5 tribulations in a row. And compared to Jian Wushuang, none of the rumored emperors could surpass him. If Jian Wushuang could end this sacred assembly, obtain enough treasures, and break through the Tribulation Realm, it would be a witness to history. Jian Wushuang's expression remained unchanged as he calmly said, "Let's leave quickly. We're still some distance away from the departure point of the infinite great world. We can't waste any more time here." The three headed towards the valley where Wu Li was. Here, everything returned to calm. Outside, there were still many powerful individuals observing this battle. When they saw Jian Wushuang decisively slay 2 universe masters at the third tribulation, they began to investigate his identity. What? He's actually an emperor. Many couldn't help but exclaim in astonishment. An emperor effortlessly slew 2 universe masters. Such an occurrence was akin to legend. Today, they actually witnessed it with their own eyes. Haha, we, the pride of the 16 kingdoms, are all like this. I wonder if you're afraid or not. A scattered tribulation powerhouse intentionally provoked the experts from various realms. The observing experts split into 2 factions. Only the ancient Wuxia experts watched with indifference. They had long been aware of Jian Wushuang's strength. They just hadn't extended an olive branch to recruit Jian Wushuang yet. This time, however, presented an opportunity. Of course, they had to wait for Jian Wushuang to come out alive. At the edge of the infinite great world, an entire mountain range served as a natural barrier for the infinite great world. After meeting with Wu Li and the others, Jian Wushuang and his group began to rush at full speed. They had now reached the edge of the mountain range. The gathering point was already very close. Along the way, they encountered quite a bit of trouble. They encountered many savage beasts at the Tribulation Realm, but fortunately, their strength was not strong. With only 200,000 to 3,000 divine power, they could be easily killed with a flick of their hands. Just as they were about to leave the mountain range, the token on Jinqian's body suddenly reacted. A special mission? Wu Li and Elder Mukin said simultaneously. Jian Wushuang looked puzzledly at the two, unaware of what was happening. At this moment, Juhu beside him spoke up. It seems that our luck is turning for the better. Unexpectedly, before reaching the depths of the infinite great world, we can receive a special mission issued by the ancient Wood sect. Unfortunately, it's only the Emperor's special mission. I wonder if there will be any rewards. Elder Mukin couldn't help feeling regretful. If a universe master received a special mission, they would make a fortune. Wu Li quickly reminded Jinqian. Princess, quickly check how many star mission it is. 5 stars. Jinqian was a bit confused by this, still somewhat surprised at why everyone seemed so astonished. Hearing it was a 5-star mission, everyone was completely stunned. Wu Li couldn't contain his excitement. This time we're really lucky. Even though it's Emperor's special mission with 5 stars, the treasures we'll get won't be ordinary. There's a good chance we'll also get a pre-scouting map. A pre-scouting map? What's that? Jian Wushuang seized on the key point, finally interjecting. Elder Mukin then explained to him and Jinqian some of the strange assessments in the Holy Assembly. The tokens given to them were not for communication purposes. Their main use was to distribute tasks. The one given to the Emperor was the Emperor's task, which only the Emperor could complete. And the tasks were divided into a total of 6 stars. There was only one task with 6 stars throughout the entire assessment. And the rewards were also the greatest. Not only could they obtain some rare treasures, but they could also get a pre-scouting map. The pre-scouting map represented the map route of their world. The routes marked on it were generally safe routes. With a secure route in hand, they could reach the finish line at the fastest speed possible. The special missions for 6-star ranks would definitely yield pre-scouting maps. For 5-star ranks, there was only a 50% chance of getting a pre-scouting map. Missions were also categorized. Special missions were issued to individuals and could also be explored with companions. Group missions were usually randomly assigned to strong individuals in a certain area, and anyone could receive the mission. However, group missions were too risky. In a region, there were at least thousands of strong individuals. 1,000 people gathering together, competing at the same time. The probability was too small. Special missions were known only to their own people and were almost guaranteed to be completed. Since it's so important, why not inform? Princess Jinqian's words were interrupted by Jian Wushuang beside her. No, since it's the Emperor's special mission, we can handle it ourselves. Notifying Her Majesty won't help. Instead, it will alert the enemy. By now, Her Majesty and her entourage should have reached the assembly point. It's crowded there, and if Her Majesty acts rashly, she will surely attract attention. It's not worth the risk. Elder Mukin nodded in agreement, saying, Nephew Jian Wushuang is right. We shouldn't inform Her Majesty. Since it's the Emperor's special mission, you and Wushuang should be able to complete it. Haha. For Jian Wushuang, it was undoubtedly a piece of cake. Wu Li and the Juhu chuckled. 5-star mission. It was quite challenging. That was for others. For Jian Wushuang, it was like a walk in the park. Quick, let's check the details of the mission. We need to be fast and avoid arousing suspicion. Jinqian took out the token, glanced at it carefully and replied, It's about a 15-minute flight southwest from here. More clues will be available when we get there. I see. A 5-star mission is indeed extraordinary. Let's go. The 5 changed direction, originally heading north. Now they were flying rapidly southwest. At this point in the mountains, there weren't many teams left. Most had reached the gathering point. Even the faster ones had entered the outskirts of the infinite great world. Jian Wushuang and his team were just unlucky. Otherwise, they could have set out earlier. What they didn't expect was that there was another team equally unlucky. 2 universe masters had fallen before even entering the infinite great world. Now they were lagging behind many others, barely reaching the edge of the mountains. Buzz! In the sky near the mountains, several figures appeared. Among them, a burly man with long sideburns stared ahead with torch-like eyes, puzzled. These auras, why are they heading in the opposite direction of the gathering point? Ilu, a blue-furred wolf-headed strongman in the team, exclaimed. These auras are so familiar. Is it the team from Yu Kingdom? Is it the Yu Kingdom team that lost 2 wolf lords? The burly man said coldly. I don't think much of their strength. Tan Lang should reconsider. Tan Long's eyes turned bloodshot, not because of any hatred towards Yu Kingdom, but because he felt uncomfortable with the burly man's words. Though they were both strong in the Celestial Wolf Secret Realm. The Celestial Wolf Secret Realm had 2 universe masters at the 5th tribulation, both participating in this sacred assembly. They each had their own followers. But since all his companions had fallen, and he happened to encounter the other team, they decided to travel together. Kuelong, you should pay attention to their direction. They're heading southwest, not towards the gathering point. Many teams have already assembled at the gathering point and started off. If they're going southwest now, they must have received a mission. We could take advantage of this opportunity. Tanlong's strength might not match Kuelong's, but his mind was much sharper. If Kuelong had encountered Jian Wushuang earlier, he wouldn't have backed off. He would have definitely initiated a fight. The other party was notorious for being a lunatic, and few dared to provoke them in the Celestial Wolf Secret Realm. Kuelong ran his hand through his hair and laughed heartily. You're still somewhat useful, so what are we waiting for? Let's go after them. Wait a moment. If we follow them now, they might notice us and leave. Tan Lang hurriedly stopped everyone. A group of 6. All of them were Kuelong's men, and they didn't listen to his advice at all. Humph! Timid and hesitant. Even if it's a special mission, what can they do? Daring to kill a strong member of my Celestial Wolf clan. They must pay the price. Kuelong didn't care about anything else, leading his people to chase after them directly. Tan Lang cursed inwardly. If it weren't for being from the same clan, he would have teamed up with strong individuals from other countries to trap and kill Kuelong. His mind was too dull. For such an opportunity, he insisted on confronting it head-on. Fortunately, Jian Wushuang and the others were fast enough. It would take time for Kuelong and the others to catch up. Meanwhile, Emperor Jian Wushuang and his team had already reached the mission location. Whoosh! The cold wind howled. In the southwest mountains, where snow accumulated year-round, the temperature was extremely low. After surveying the surroundings, the group didn't find anything and descended directly to the ground. Ding! The golden token reacted again, and everyone gathered around. Enter Snow Shadow Mountain. Everyone was stunned. Snow Shadow Mountain? The mountain range here extended to an unknown place. Where should they look? Just as they were at a loss, a strong gust of wind suddenly rose. The snowstorm instantly blew towards them. Jian Wushuang raised his hand to block the cold snow and squinted ahead. It's there, he pointed. Everyone looked in unison. It was exactly where the snowstorm was coming from. A pitch-black cave entrance. Above it, the words Snow Shadow appeared at some point. Nephew Wushuang, you take Princess Jinshin in. We'll guard this place for you. Elder Mukin began arranging some simple formations for occasional needs. Jian Wushuang nodded, dispersing his divine power and directly enveloping Princess Jinshin, rushing towards the cave entrance of Snow Shadow Mountain. The power of the snowstorm was extremely strong. An ordinary emperor couldn't even enter. Just entering Snow Shadow Mountain alone required 200,000 divine power. If it weren't for his divine power enveloping Jinshin, she would have been blown away long ago. Directly go in? Jian Wushuang turned to Princess Jinxin, asking if there were any other instructions. Princess Jinxin didn't speak, just nodded. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate either, taking her directly into the pitch-black cave entrance. Just before he entered the cave, he sensed a dangerous aura coming from afar. But at this moment, he was already at the edge and couldn't stop. He could only hurriedly send a message to Wooly, asking them to be careful. Strong individuals were approaching them. They had to complete the mission quickly. He was truly worried that Wooly might perish. Without Wooly, he couldn't even find Wan Lu, let alone enter. After dragging Jinxin into the Snow Shadow Mountain cave, that wild force finally disappeared. Ding! The token came again. Kill the Snow Shadow Demon King. The content was straightforward and crude, and so was Jian Wushuang. Just as they entered the cave, they encountered several snow monsters, all of considerable strength. Each had around 200,000 divine powers. An ordinary emperor couldn't handle them at all. For Jian Wushuang, it was merely a matter of sword aura on the surface, yet it could instantly kill these snow monsters. He didn't hesitate and, accompanied by Jinsheng, he swiftly slew the snow monsters, penetrating deep into the heart of Snow Shadow Mountain. Meanwhile, outside Snow Shadow Mountain, Wooly hadn't received any message from Jian Wushuang yet, which furrowed his brows, because he noticed people rushing towards their direction, and not just one. 7 formidable individuals in total. The weakest among them possessed 400,000 divine power. Among them were 2 with over 500,000 divine power each. They must be universe masters at the 4th tribulation. When he received the message from Jian Wushuang, he was momentarily stunned, not by the unexpected arrival of those formidable individuals, but by Jian Wushuang's unexpected revelation. The news of the approaching strong individuals was conveyed to him by the entity dwelling within him, yet Jian Wushuang seemed to be aware of it as well. This revelation greatly shocked him. The entity residing within him was truly remarkable. There was no time to dwell on this further. He hastily reminded Mukin and the 2 others, Zhouhu, to prepare for battle. The next moment, a row of figures appeared above them. Tanlang, Kueilong, we're done for. They were already in a state of despair, realizing that the enemies before them were far beyond their ability to contend with. Zhouhu took 2 steps back, already preparing to flee. 2 universe masters at the 4th tribulation. The cunning Tanlang with a divine power of 500,000. The fierce Kueilong with a divine power of 530,000. How were they supposed to fight against them? Hurry! Inform your empress! Zhouhu shouted urgently. Elder Mukin, upon seeing this, immediately sent out the message. The empress quickly responded. The head of the Li family, accompanied by 2 4th tribulation experts from the royal family, would soon arrive. They only needed to hold out for an hour. An hour! This time frame could afford them preparations for what lay ahead. Elder Mukin also understood this, but there was no other way. They could only hold out. How long will it take? Wooly furrowed his brow and asked. Elder Mukin remained silent. The time was too long, revealing it would only lead to despair. He had already begun preparing for what came next, which was to desperately hold the line. At the same time, he prayed that Jian Wushuang encountered trouble in the Snow Shadow Mountain and would come out after an hour. By then, they could head to the assembly point with the mission rewards and rendezvous with the Empress. That was the best plan. For just the 3 of them to try to hold off these people was impossible. The Tanlang glanced down at the 3 below and then noticed the Snow Shadow Mountain cave. Without a word, he charged straight toward the cave. But as soon as he reached the entrance, a barrier blocked his way. Can't get in. Tanlang was somewhat surprised. Initially, he had sensed the presence of 4 individuals. Because Jinxin's strength was too weak, during their journey, Jian Wushuang had enveloped her with divine power, so she wasn't detected by Tanlang. Arriving just now, the Tanlang saw only 3 people. The boy carrying the sword had disappeared. He had thought Jian Wushuang went in alone. If that were the case, this place must be a special mission assigned by the Universe Master. According to common sense, they all could enter. But he couldn't enter now. In an instant, he understood. No wonder these people were waiting at the entrance. The boy with the sword on his back is the emperor. Tanlong's eyes narrowed, recalling the rumors from some time ago. An extraordinary emperor had appeared in Yu Kingdom, capable of erupting with 200,000 divine power. Now it seemed not only true but even more formidable than rumored. Mukin sneered. "You've discovered this. In that case, you all must die." Tanlang roared angrily, ready to attack. But at this moment, Kuelong stepped forward, stopping Tanlang. "Don't be hasty. Whoever goes in, the treasures that cannot be brought out will belong to me, Kuelong. And you pray are mine as well. Anyone who dares to interfere, don't blame me for being impolite." Juhu was already petrified, not daring to move. Faced with a vastly superior opponent, he had no confidence whatsoever. Even Kuelong alone, the three of them combined, couldn't withstand for even the duration of an incense stick burning. Upon hearing this, Tanlang was enraged. "Kuelong, this is not the time to play around. Deal with them quickly. They definitely have reinforcements coming this way. Don't be careless. If you're afraid, you can leave any time." Kuelong sneered. "A mere Yu Kingdom, with only one universe master of the fifth tribulation. The rest of the universe masters of the fourth tribulation are no match for me. I'll kill however many come." The arrogant Kuelong didn't even regard Yu Kingdom with a glance. Tanlang was helpless alone. But inwardly, he cursed the other's foolishness. Crack! Kuelong flexed his wrist casually, saying, "The three of you, entertain me for a while." Elder Mukin exchanged a glance with Wu Li, and they instantly understood each other. They still had some cards up their sleeves. Not to mention the secrets on Wu Li. Just Mukin's trump card, the soul-shocking vine, could boost his divine power to 450,000. Wu Li also had some tricks up his sleeve. If he really unleashed them, he might even surpass Elder Mukin in strength. The two of them together might be able to withstand an hour. The premise was that Tanlang wouldn't intervene. As long as no one interfered, they could hold out. Plus, there were Jiuhu. The opponent's strength wasn't negligible. With their combined 400,000 divine powers, they could make good use of it. There was still hope for the three of them to survive. But they feared Jian Wushuang suddenly appearing with no intention to play games, and just cutting them down. That would be troublesome. Right now, they could only hope Jian Wushuang would take his time. Inside the Snow Shadow Mountain, Jian Wushuang slaughtered snow monsters all the way, already reaching the deepest part. He just wanted to get out quickly now. The blood monsters he encountered along the way were getting stronger, until he reached the deepest part. Ordinary snow monsters already had 250,000 divine power. And in the depths, the aura of the snow monster demon king had appeared, with divine power reaching 300,000. Unfortunately, before the opponent could see his face, it was instantly shattered by the sword chi. Along the way, Jinshin was mesmerized. Any one of those snow monsters, she wouldn't be a match for. But under Jian Wushuang's hand, they were like ants, easily slain. Looking up at Jian Wushuang's stern face, Jinshin also felt a slight stir in her heart. It wasn't an emotional touch. It was admiration for the strong. Among peers, no one dared to call themselves a genius in front of Jian Wushuang, nor did anyone have the qualifications. Perhaps what her mother said was right. Meeting Jian Wushuang was both luck for Yuck Kingdom and her own. Unfortunately, one cannot measure love with strength. The snow monster demon king was instantly slain. Mission accomplished. The token trembled once again. Talk to the Snow King. Jian Wushuang was surprised. What kind of mission is this? As soon as he spoke, he felt a gathering force, and when he turned to look, he saw the snow monster demon king who had been killed. Outsider, how dare you kill me? The bloodline in my body is from the beasts of the North Pole icefield. You will surely die miserably. Jinshin spoke up. Snow King, you shouldn't have been here in the first place. Blame yourself for leaving the North Pole Leafield. I've been here for tens of thousands of epochs, and it's you who destroyed my homeland. The Snow Shadow Demon King was very unwilling. At this moment, Jian Wushuang thought of something. A hidden mission? The North Pole icefield at the northernmost part of the infinite great world. To reach the destination, they needed to cross the entire North Pole icefield. Perhaps they could ask about the North Pole icefield situation or even a map from the other party. With a safe route, their speed would be faster. This time, Jian Wushuang personally engaged in conversation. And indeed, he managed to extract information about the North Pole icefield from the Snow Monster Demon King. The three leaders will not let you go. They will avenge Weilang. With these words, the Demon King's soul also disappeared. On the ground, there was Snowball and a piece of parchment. Jian Wushuang was overjoyed. It's a map! With a quick step, he picked up the items from the ground. The Snowball was a treasure, considered a postnatal universe treasure, but its power was unknown. He tossed it directly to Jinshin. Then he looked at the map. They indeed marked some routes on the map. However, these routes were not safe passages but rather treasure routes. The map recorded the locations of some inheritance relics. Judging by the scale of the map, Jian Wushuang studied it for a moment and realized that this route was actually a shortcut, which was better than nothing. This time, they truly made a profit. You should take this too. Jian Wushuang didn't claim it for himself but handed the pre-scouting map to Jinshin. For him, the Empress becoming a candidate was the most important thing. He didn't care about the treasures in this place. If there were treasures useful for the origin, he might take a closer look. His Starry Sky origin source had already lit up 9,000 black holes. To reach a complete universe, he only lacked 1,000 black holes. The third Tribulation Universe Master could only be considered a small universe. The Universe Master of the Fourth Tribulation could be considered a large one. Only the Universe Master of the Fifth Tribulation could be considered complete. And he was about to light up a complete universe. As long as he broke through the tribulation, he could cross 5 tribulations at once, becoming the Universe Master of the Fifth Tribulation. Let's get out of here quickly. The mission was completed, and it was time to leave. Compared to the treasures obtained from the mission, he was more afraid that Wu Li would fall. He hoped the other party had enough hidden cards. He could tell that there were still many secrets on Wu Li. Even if his strength was a bit weaker, he should have many life-saving cards. Pulling Jinshin along with a few flashes, they arrived at the entrance of the cave. With a flicker of their figures, the two of them left the cave at the same time. Outside of Snow Shadow Mountain, Kuelong stepped on the body of Elder Mukin. With one hand still holding the struggling Wu Li, Jiuhu, on the other hand, kept retreating out of fear, losing all will to fight. Is this all you've got? Kuelong sneered. With such little strength, you actually scared Tanlang into fleeing and even caused the loss of 2 universe masters. What a waste. Tanlong's expression was embarrassed, but he didn't retort. He kept staring at the entrance of the cave. The sudden appearance of a presence made Tanlong's expression greatly joyful. Knowing that Jian Wushuang had come out, he ignored Kuelong and rushed straight towards the entrance of the cave, feeling elated in his heart. Kuelong was still foolishly staring. Compared to revenge, Tanlang was more concerned about those treasures. In his view, Kuelong was just a fool with well-developed limbs. As long as he seized the treasure, the credit would be his. The deaths of 2 universe masters meant nothing. Jian Wushuang had just come out and hadn't yet seen the situation on the field clearly when he noticed Tanlang charging towards him. This time, he didn't need to endure anymore. Before, there was no need to. This time, the other party was coming for the treasures they had obtained. It was bound to be a fight to the death. If he endured again, he would have to prepare for his funeral. Buzz! The power of the beast god erupted instantly, and his divine power soared to 500,000 in an instant. Facing Tanlong's claw, he caught it barehandedly. The power of the beast god circulated wildly as he held onto Jinshin with one hand. The arm of the candle dragon on his left hand burst out directly, blocking that claw. This time, I won't hold back. Jian Wushuang grabbed the opponent's wolf claw and squeezed it fiercely. A crisp sound echoed. Tanlang was shocked and turned pale, exclaiming in astonishment and anger, You've been hiding your strength? He hadn't expected Jian Wushuang to be so powerful even without using his sword. The burst of divine power just now was no weaker than his own. Boom! A powerful force erupted from Tanlong's mouth as he tried to attack Jian Wushuang at close range. But it was actually a ploy to escape. Such tricks were no match for Jian Wushuang. However, he couldn't be bothered to Antonello himself with the Anonant rescuing people was the priority now. Tanlang frowned and said coldly, "Is your sword just for deception? Think whatever you want." Jian Wushuang replied indifferently. With one hand pulling Jinshin, he flashed directly in front of Kuelong. Mukin, lying on the ground, saw Jian Wushuang and anxiously said, "Go quickly, you're no match for him." Wu Li, being choked, couldn't even speak. He had wanted to explode earlier, but the presence within him reminded him that Jian Wushuang had the strength to deal with these people. So there was no need to waste his treasures. Initially, Wu Li didn't believe it, but just now he saw Jian Wushuang easily repel Tanlang, and he could feel Jian Wushuang's divine power surpassing his own, reaching 500,000. This power was already enough to contend with Kuelong. Kuelong, however, was unconcerned. Just as he was about to speak, he couldn't even see Jian Wushuang's figure clearly before feeling his own arm being grabbed. Crack! A crisp sound rang out as Kuelong's entire arm snapped off. The arm, along with Wu Li, fell to the ground together. Ah! Kuelong was startled. Jian Wushuang didn't give the opponent a chance to react. He lifted his foot and kicked directly at Kuelong's chest, sending him flying into the mountains behind. He crashed through several towering peaks before finally coming to a stop. With a casual gathering of the power of all things, Jian Wushuang infused it into Elder Mukin's body. Only then did Elder Mukin manage to stand up reluctantly, regaining some of his divine power. Feeling the immense divine power emanating from Jian Wushuang, Elder Mukin was completely stunned. "You go first, I'll hold them back." I'll let go of Jinshin, took a step forward, and directly stood in front of everyone. Elder Mukin was still somewhat worried, knowing that staying here would only cause trouble for Jian Wushuang. "Be careful. We'll meet at the rendezvous point." After saying this, he quickly flew northward with Wu Li and Jinshin. Juhu hurriedly followed. Now only Jian Wushuang remained, along with the 7 universe masters of the Celestial Wolf clan. Tianlang rubbed his shattered wolf claws, veins bulging on his forehead. I hadn't expected Jian Wushuang to be so powerful. An emperor, reaching such strength, was something he had never heard of before. The other 5 universe masters at the third tribulation also realized that they were no match and retreated one after another. Boom! Kuelong, who was repelled, was missing an arm, but his divine power had not weakened. On the contrary, he became even more frenzied, directly crashing through several towering mountains and standing in front of Jian Wushuang again. With a roar, his severed arm instantly regenerated. Kuelong stared at Jian Wushuang, manically saying, "You do have some skills after all. Why waste words? Let's just fight." Jian Wushuang clenched his fist, the red aura on his body erupting once again. This time, he directly unleashed 3 times the power of the beast god. His divine power surged to 550,000, overwhelming Kuelong. Even if several people joined forces, he could swiftly defeat them. 550,000? Kuelong sneered, then turned to Tianlang and said, "This person is my prey. You can't intervene." Knowing that Jian Wushuang's divine power was stronger than his, and being so confident, clearly showed great confidence. Tianlong's brows furrowed, surprised. "Are you going to use that move now?" "Why not?" Kuelong sneered. "You fool, we haven't even reached the assembly point yet, and you want to transform? How long do you plan to let the trouble you leave behind linger? It can't affect the grand plan of our clan." Tanlang was getting anxious. Kuelong's strength ranked first among their Celestial Wolf clan, and they couldn't afford to waste it like this. As soon as he finished speaking, he thought of something else. If Jian Wushuang really obtained a crucial treasure inside the Snow Shadow Mountain, perhaps they could make one last gamble. Anyway, they would have to take risks once they entered the infinite great world. "If you're afraid, you can leave now." Kuelong gathered energy in his hands, ignoring Tanlang. However, Tanlang harbored malicious thoughts. If Jian Wushuang and Kuelong ended up mutually wounded, perhaps he would still have a chance to seize the credit. Jian Wushuang wasn't particularly interested in their conversation. When he heard about transformation, he thought of the Celestial Wolf Clan's innate secret technique. Under the demonic moon, the Celestial Wolf Clan could transform based on their bloodline, increasing their strength exponentially. But here, there wasn't even a moon, let alone the demonic moon. Jian Wushuang looked at the aura gathering between the opponent's hands, the kind of red divine power somewhat similar to his beast god power. Could it be that the ancestor of your Celestial Wolf Clan is a natural beast god? The resonance between his beastly divine weapon and theirs was probably because of this. A beast god. Kuelong's eye sockets kept shrinking, raising his hands violently and throwing the red divine power in the sky. Crash! That aura, like condensed blood, turned the sky into a piece of paper. The blood burst, and the sky instantly turned blood red. Kuelong looked up at the blood color in the sky, his eye sockets also turning blood red. The other 5 universe masters of the third tribulation also underwent the same change. Their eye sockets turned red, their bodies began to expand, and in an instant, they transformed into giant monster forms tens of thousands of feet tall. Their divine power also began to skyrocket. Those universe masters of the third tribulation only had 350,000 divine power, but after transforming, their divine power directly reached 400,000. He gained a whopping 50,000. Kuelong was even more exaggerated. His bloodline became even stronger, and the amplification of his divine power was even greater. From 530,000, it directly surged to 600,000. I actually increased by so much. Jian Wushuang was extremely surprised. He thought it would be good if he could increase by 2 or 3 tens of thousands, but he didn't expect a direct surge of a full 70,000. This was even more terrifying than his beast god power. Doubling his beast god power only increased it by 50,000. He turned to look at Tanlang on the other side and found that the other party hadn't transformed, apparently not allowed to join the battle. This was just as well. Otherwise, he would have been somewhat struggling. 3 times the beast god power was his current limit. Using the general's armor would be necessary if he went beyond that. It would be troublesome to use the general's armor rashly in front of outsiders who could see them fighting. It was better not to use it if possible. Now that he had the Wanjia sword, he could resort to it if necessary. You brat, prepare to die. Kuelong stretched out his sharp claws and tore straight towards Jian Wushuang. The terrifying power shattered the firmament. Several spatial cracks appeared instantly, and countless astral winds converged. Jian Wushuang had nowhere to hide, so he could only withstand it head-on. With his arms crossed over his chest, he forcefully took the attack. His flesh was torn countless times, and his divine power began to decline. The difference was quite significant. 550,000 divine power against 600,000 divine power. Although it seemed like only a difference of 50,000, in reality it was a difference of an entire doubling of combat power. Beast God Domain. Jian Wushuang also began to corrupt. Within the domain, Kuelong felt his divine power being somewhat suppressed, which surprised him. The previously somewhat arrogant Kuelong also began to take it seriously, instructing his several subordinates behind him, "You block his retreat. I'll attack." Yes. The 5 universe masters of the third tribulation directly surrounded Jian Wushuang. Glancing around, Jian Wushuang realized that this battle could only be fought head-on. Then let's start with you. The red divine power on Jian Wushuang's body disappeared in an instant, and his divine power also dropped to 400,000. The several universe masters at the third tribulation surrounding Jian Wushuang were stunned. You surrender now, you still die. Kuelong charged directly. Jian Wushuang's eyebrows twitched, and in just a moment, his aura seemed to change entirely. A blue aura surrounded him, erupting into countless electric arcs. The power of the origin wasn't violent, but it was agile and even more fierce. Clang! Jian Wushuang drew the Wanjia sword directly, his figure disappearing in an instant from where he stood, much faster than before. Kuelong's claw missed, and before he could react, Jian Wushuang was already behind him. With his back to his opponent, Jian Wushuang's lips curled upward. The strongest stays behind. It's more important to deal with these universe masters at the third tribulation first. The blue sword shadows of the Wanjik sword filled the blood-red sky. Die! Jian Wushuang shouted angrily, sweeping his sword horizontally, and countless sword shadows flew out. The universe masters at the third tribulation surrounding him were instantly sealed and killed. The vitality within their bodies almost disappeared in an instant. The powerful observers watching this battle couldn't help but inhale sharply. That sword strike of Jian Wushuang just now indeed astonished many. This child absolutely has mastered the origin source of the universe, but has been suppressing his realm without breakthrough. Similar to that high priest? Many exclaimed. Ilaha, no matter how strong that high priest is, he's only comparable to the third tribulation. Jian Wushuang, whether it's divine power or origin source, surpasses the third tribulation. He can even kill those at the fourth tribulation. Many at the seventh tribulation also looked towards Jian Wushuang. That one sword move of Jian Wushuang just now was too dazzling. As emperor, he instantly slew 5 universe masters with a divine power of 400,000. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it. The head of the ancient would sect squinted. The more he looked at Jian Wushuang, the more familiar he seemed. Suddenly, he remembered something. He had seen that blue aura before. There was a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Could it be sent by Babidi? The head of the ancient would sect felt a sinking feeling in his heart. But then he thought again. Babidi hadn't informed him in advance. Unfortunately, he couldn't contact Babidi proactively, otherwise he could have verified it. If Babidi was indeed scheming against the ancient Wood sect, he wouldn't have any means to resist. Currently, only the Divine Wood King was in charge within the ancient Wood sect. That 7th Tribulation Universe Master wasn't even on the ancient Wood continent. Even if there were 7th Tribulation Universe Masters, it wouldn't matter. He had witnessed the strength of Qi Zhouxiao. Much stronger than an 8th Tribulation Universe Master, it wouldn't make a difference who came. Forget about the ancient Wood continent. Looking at the entire ancient moon spacetime, the advantage lay with Babidi. His allegiance was neither right nor wrong. Let's just wait and see. The head of the ancient Wood sect swept his eyes around, watching those powerful figures jockeying for position, with a cold snort in his heart. Universe masters were just temporary. The scattered tribulation was for a lifetime. Infinite great world. Jian Wushuang swiftly killed 5 universe masters who had transformed, not even breathing heavily, and once again drew his sword to confront Kuelong. For a universe master with 400,000 divine power, killing them was utterly effortless. The strongest opponent remained Kuelong. With 600,000 divine powers, Jian Wushuang felt a certain pressure. Though he possessed numerous trump cards, he knew now wasn't the time to reveal them all. He hadn't even witnessed the Wanlu yet, let alone the infinite great world. Revealing his hand prematurely would be a costly mistake. He opted to stall when possible and evade when necessary. As an emperor, he saw no need to play the hero in such a situation. If he wanted recognition, he would earn it within Wanlu. The entire ancient Wood continent would remember him then. You think killing a few weaklings makes you my equal? Kuelong's aura surged as he boldly intercepted Jian Wushuang's strike, his grip on the blade fierce. I'll show you the strongest secret technique of the Celestial Wolf clan. You can still power up? Jian Wushuang's expression shifted slightly as he quickly drew the Wanjia sword, retreating rapidly. Beside him, Tanlang was also taken aback. Although they hailed from the same realm, they were only familiar with their own secret techniques. True trump cards were not to be shared, even among kin or partners. Kuelong clenched his fists, his aura erupting once more, his eyes almost bursting. Sky rupture. Hum. The surrounding space began to collapse. The sheer force of his presence alone could tear space apart. Indeed, it was a sky rupture. While Kuelong's divine power remained constant, The technique he employed had changed. Jian Wushuang felt a hint of panic. A universe master of the fourth tribulation was evidently not as straightforward to deal with as he had assumed. With such strength, he already possessed the power of a fifth tribulation. Yet that was merely a threshold, just like the Emperor's limit. They said he had 100,000 divine power, but there were still many geniuses who could reach 150,000, even 200,000. The Universe Master was no exception. Kuelong's eruption was enough to rival the Universe Master of the Fifth Tribulation. If Jian Wushuang shone too brightly, it could also cause quite a stir. "Kid, it's over." Kuelong stretched out his hand, 2 fingers pointing upwards. A force that swept through heaven and earth instantly flattened the nearby mountains into plains. Jian Wushuang struggled to resist with the beast god wings. He knew his opponent hadn't truly made a move yet. The previous attack was just an appetizer. This time he had truly overestimated himself. But because of the opponent's eruption, he now felt a surge of fighting spirit boiling within him. "Come on. Let me see your true secret technique of the Celestial Wolf Clan." Jian Wushuang flicked his robe, holding the Wuxia sword upside down, determination gleaming in his eyes. "If it's a battle, then let it be a battle." Kuelong grinned, and a black force began to rise on his hands, or rather, his claws. Illusory sky transformation. Kuelong spread his arms, his entire body submerged in the black force. Merging with the black mist, he charged directly at Jian Wushuang. His speed was even faster than before. The space he passed through began to collapse directly. He could already destroy the space of the infinite great world. If it were a fifth tribulation powerhouse, they might have been able to damage the foundation of the infinite great world. Jian Wushuang's wings trembled behind him as he distanced himself from Kuelong, continuously unleashing the Wuxia sword's shadows to pull against the opponent. However, the sharp sword shadows couldn't shake the power on the opponent's body. In other words, his current primal strength was not enough to break through the defense. Starry Sky Chronicles. Seeing this situation, he didn't delay any longer and directly displayed the Starry Sky Chronicles. A huge scroll covered the sky. The Wuxia sword also buzzed. A powerful force of the starry sky amplified onto Jian Wushuang's body. The first sword move. Jian Wushuang raised his hand, and the sword shadows of the Wuxia sword turned into the firmament. A green sword shadow slashed out from the myriad swords. Sword of Life. The sword move he had once been proud of. He didn't believe that the opponent could still withstand this sword. Kuelong, facing this sudden true sword move, did not dodge, treating it as an ordinary sword shadow, and raised his hand to block. But when he touched this sword, the vitality in his body crazily reversed, and then he felt reverence for life. He began to tremble uncontrollably. Seeing that this sword move had an effect, Jian Wushuang continued to slash out hundreds of sword strikes in succession. Hundreds of swords of life thoroughly drained the life power within Jian Wushuang's body. In the past, using one sword move would leave him exhausted. Now, using 100 sword moves in a row had reached his limit. For him now, life power was more than sufficient, but the power of death was too little. If he were to unleash the second sword move of the Starry Sky Chronicles, death, he could only unleash it 10 times at most. Moreover, to restore the power of death, he would need to reverse life, which was extremely troublesome. But restoring life was much simpler. The power of all things could be condensed at any time. In just a breath's time, he had recovered a bit. The 100 swords of life, when used against Kuelong, even if they couldn't kill him, could severely wound him. Seeing Kuelong struggling, Jian Wushuang thought it might be over for him. But Kuelong's divine power hadn't diminished. Instead, his vitality was ebbing away. "Get out of my way!" Kuelong roared in frustration under the harassment of the swords of life. Faced with the subsequent onslaught, he erupted once more. This time, his divine power began to surge. A terrifying aura burst forth in an instant. Kuelong's divine power skyrocketed to 680,000 in a blink of an eye. This sight startled not only Jian Wushuang but also made even Tanlang retreat involuntarily. Because he knew that if Kuelong used his secret technique now, he would lose his sanity. The transformation of the celestial wolf clan had two forms. One was Kuelong's current form, which could enhance his divine power. However, the drawback was that his temperament would become increasingly violent, and he couldn't maintain it for long. The second form also enhanced divine power, but the amplification was even stronger. However, the drawbacks were more terrifying. He would lose consciousness and enter a completely berserk state. He would continue in this state until his divine power was exhausted, then fall into a deep sleep. Tanlang understood that Kuelong, in his current state due to his first transformation, coupled with his inherently violent nature, had completely abandoned restraint, solely aiming for Jian Wushuang's death. For a moment he was somewhat puzzled. After all, Jian Wushuang had initially killed his underlings, so why was Kuelong so furious? But then he remembered something and let it go. Kuelong's mother was once the holy maiden of the Celestial Wolf clan but had run away because of a powerful individual from the Yu Kingdom, reportedly even a patriarch of one of its clans. So Kuelong's extreme anger towards the strong of the Yu Kingdom was understandable. Within the clan, Kuelong had been shunned because of this incident. Fortunately, Kuelong had grown stronger over time, and fewer people knew about this matter. Those who did know dared not bring it up again, because anyone who mentioned it would pay a hefty price. Clutching his head with both claws, Kuelong, in his complete transformation, would endure brief torment. It was meant to erode his consciousness. Now only a trace of consciousness remained in Kuelong. He shook his head frantically, and the remaining consciousness made him look towards Tanlang. Tanlang, don't forget the promise. Kuelong's intermittent voice fell, and he completely entered a state of frenzy. Jian Wushuang blinked and muttered to himself, "I don't think I have much grudge against you." Could it be that, among the people he had just killed, there was Kuelong's father? Otherwise, it wouldn't be so intense. Upon hearing this, Tanlong's eyes went blank for a moment, murmuring to himself, "Promise!" It should be the oath sworn by their celestial wolf clan, prioritizing the interests of the wolf clan above all else in the infinite great world. The two of them only had this kind of relationship. "I will keep my promise, and when necessary, I will save you once." Tanlang this time didn't harbor any evil intentions due to greed, but rather admired Kuelong a bit. He would never fight so desperately, unless the other party threatened his life. But such a situation was something he wouldn't encounter, and even if he did, he would flee first. Not like Kuelong, who insisted on fighting to the death. Howl! The sound of wolves howling echoed throughout the entire mountain range. Kuelong completely transformed into his true form, his limbs trampling on the peaks. Facing Jian Wushuang without fear, he charged directly. 680,000 divine power. That's no joke. Even the universe masters of the fifth tribulation probably have this level. Who could withstand this? Show the sword. Although Jian Wushuang wasn't very confident, he still had to try. Dual sword slash. The strongest two sword moves to date. Performed together. His figure moved like sword shadows, piercing through Kuelong's body. But the other party didn't even flinch. His divine power didn't weaken at all. He was simply not an opponent. "Then I'll have to leave." Jian Wushuang shook his head. His fighting spirit had been ignited, only to realize that his opponent was merely a mindless beast. There was little purpose in continuing the battle. It was a complete waste of time. Time to go! He sheathed the Wuxia sword once again, the blue aura on his body boiling up to the deep blue state once more. Couldn't win? He could just escape, right? Escaping was a skill he had mastered in the Qixin Temple. From the first time he was captured by Junwang to the later battles with Xinling, he had been caught every time. But then he had an epiphany. The strongest secret technique was always reserved for self-preservation. Seeing Jian Wushuang attempting to flee, Tanlang couldn't hold back any longer. If he didn't act now, he would let down Kuelong. "Wanna run?" Tanlong's soft armor burst, his figure stretching to thousands of feet as he transformed into his first form, with his divine power reaching 550,000. He intended to stop Jian Wushuang, but Jian Wushuang didn't even regard him as a threat. One thought universe. Buzz! An oval-shaped universe instantly descended, enveloping half of the mountain range. Jian Wushuang's wings merged with the one-thought universe. 3 Quakes universe. His wings trembled, and his figure disappeared instantly. Tanlong's claw swiped through empty air. Not only could he not see Jian Wushuang's figure, but he also couldn't sense his aura. How is this possible? He looked up at the sky, feeling the shift in power. He was completely stunned. It was the embryonic form of the universe. The most famous feature of the ancient Wood continent was the divine kingdom built by the flame god. Though they were special beings, they originally didn't have their own origin source universe. However, he had managed to establish a universe that was no less than that of the universe masters. Within the flame god's universe, he could unleash the pinnacle power of the 8 tribulations. However, he couldn't carry that universe with him, just like an ordinary universe master. But for special beings like him, it was enough. Without the ultimate tribulation of the universe, just the tribulation of the divine body, he could delay as long as he wished. Those who could contain their own origin source universe were genuinely the masters of the 8 tribulation. But Jian Wushuang's universe, though in its infancy, boasted a foundational strength far surpassing even that of Tanlong's origin source universe. Even the scattered tribulation powerhouses watching this battle were stirred. Witnessing Jian Wushuang's manifestation of one-thought universe with a single thought, they couldn't help but think of the embryonic prototype universe constructed by the flame god. However, the prototype universe of the flame god was impossible to contain. For Jian Wushuang, a mere emperor, to be able to contain a universe was astonishing. Although it was just a prototype, it was enough to astonish anyone. Building a prototype universe was nothing for Jian Wushuang. The powerhouses observing the battle also believed Jian Wushuang had that capability. But being able to contain a universe was somewhat out of the ordinary. Many had already set their sights on Jian Wushuang. Containing a universe? How did he manage it? That was a big question. If there was a method, it could change the current situation. You Kingdom's royal son-in-law? Interesting. After the sacred assembly, we must win over this guy and find out how he contained the universe. The scattered tribulation powerhouses, without a universe of their own, had lost much interest in containing one. But those masters of the 6th tribulation needed such a method. If they could contain a universe, they could explore temporal secrets with their origin source universes, significantly enhancing their combat capabilities. 6th Tribulation Universe Masters could then venture into secret realms that were only accessible to 7th Tribulation powerhouses. The treasures obtained and the enhancements would be transformative. Even Sword Immortal Tonghe was tempted. He had some acquaintance with Jian Wushuang, but compared to the ability to contain a universe, that acquaintance was negligible. Even if it meant going to his real father, he would have to ask. The infinite great world. After several breaths, Jian Wushuang unleashed the 3-Quake universe tens of thousands of times and directly left the mountain range. He had completely arrived in the infinite world. At this moment, he had no idea that his manifestation of his one-thought universe had caused such a stir. Otherwise, he would definitely not have exposed himself at this moment. This was also Kuelong's good fortune. In a situation where he could only fight and not escape, Jian Wushuang still managed to kill his opponent. Once he used the armor, he could unleash 5 times the power of the beast god, amplifying his divine power to 650,000. Combined with the 700,000 divine power inside the ancient monastery jade urn, it was too easy to kill Kuelong. After collecting a notion of the universe, just as he emerged from the mountains, he happened to encounter the head of the Li family sent by the Empress. Wu Li was there too. Elder Mukin, due to his serious injuries, had already gone ahead to the gathering point to recuperate. Jian Wushuang, you actually managed to escape. The head of the Li family was somewhat astonished. He knew the secrets of the Celestial Wolf clan's techniques very well, because his Dao companion was the holy maiden of the Celestial Wolf clan. According to seniority, Kuelong still had to call him godfather. But unfortunately, this unfilial son didn't even acknowledge his own mother. If Jian Wushuang knew the relationship between the two, he would probably curse loudly. Young nephew Wushuang, you are too modest. Speed is also a great strength. This time, being able to single-handedly confront two universe masters of the Fourth Tribulation, your reputation will surely soar after this. Many Seventh Tribulation powerhouses are also watching. The head of the Li family exclaimed. That was true. However, Jian Wushuang didn't care about this. Once he departed, it was only natural that he would stir up pursuit from various quarters. All right, let's go. Many teams have already set off into the infinite great world, and we're among the slowest batch. Jian Wushuang nodded and kept pace with the others, heading towards the assembly point at full speed. Regardless, they weren't the slowest. There were still powerful beings from the Celestial Wolf clan waiting for them. But upon reaching the assembly point, Jian Wushuang realized that the Celestial Wolf clan's elites had already departed. In other words, those from the Celestial Wolf secret realm had voluntarily abandoned Kuelong and Tanlang. Presumably, Tanlang had transmitted the news back to the clan. The strongest force among the Fourth Tribulations had been crippled, and there was no need to wait any longer. Although Tanlang was still present, using innate secret techniques, it would take some time for him to recover. It was inevitable to abandon them. These discarded elites would be deemed failures and teleported away. The assembly camp. It was just a small city hastily built around an ancient teleportation array. By now, there weren't many powerful beings left. Jian Wushuang followed the head of the Li family into a large courtyard where the Empress had been waiting for some time. Elder Mukin had also returned to his peak state. Now that everyone is here, let's set off. The Empress had already examined the pre-scouting map of the North Pole icefield. This time, her wait had been worthwhile. Even if they were currently behind other teams, they could still surpass them eventually. Just as Jian Wushuang caught his breath, he followed the Empress once again through the teleportation array, truly entering the outskirts of the infinite great world. But this time, there was the Empress herself overseeing the operation. There was no need for him to carry the banner of resistance anymore. They were relatively fortunate this time, as they were transported to the banks of an ancient river. Although the river was inhabited by many wild beasts, fortunately, this place wasn't some ancient relic. There weren't many hindrances. Even when encountering wild beasts with 500,000 divine power, the Empress could easily slay them with a flick of her wrist. It was almost like cutting through air. Moreover, the Empress brought out an ancient boat, and everyone boarded it while she personally took the helm, leading them smoothly. After a journey of 100 days, they had already reached the depths of the periphery. This speed probably ranked within the top 3. In a little while longer, they would reach the innermost part of the infinite great world. That's the central position. During these days, Jian Wushuang also managed to recover the life force he had lost. Finally catching his breath after much difficulty, he sat on the deck, enjoying a cup of tea with great contentment. For experts at the Fourth Tribulation took turns monitoring the surroundings. Even the Universe Masters at the Third Tribulation patrolled the ancient boat. Only the Emperor was the most relaxed. The 4 Emperors hardly had anything to do, except for Jian Wushuang, who was resting in the cabin. At this moment, there was no mood for cultivation. Not only were they traveling, but they were also awaiting news. The assessment of the Sacred Assembly was not merely about traversing the infinite great world. They also had to undertake many tasks. Completing these tasks would earn them special treasures, only usable by the candidates for the Holy Maiden. Once the candidates for the 4 Holy Maidens were selected, then the special treasures obtained by other teams would become useless. At this point, the candidates for the 4 Great Holy Maidens would spare no effort to purchase these special treasures. It was also a way to compensate those teams that weren't selected. This could be considered a significant gain. However, after such a long time, the ancient Wood sect still hadn't assigned them any tasks. It's unclear whether it was due to their bad luck, not being assigned, or some other reason. Nevertheless, even so, they still had an advantage. With the advance map marking the route to the treasure trove, they could acquire quite a few treasures. So the Empress wasn't in a rush for the mission, just focused on hurrying along the road. To enter the North Pole icefield early, That's where the battle would take place. On the deck, the Empress stood at the bow of the ship. After Elder Mukin made a round of inspection, he reported the situation on both sides of the ancient river to the Empress and then withdrew. Wushuang, you seem relaxed. Elder Mukin came to the table, not bothering with formalities, and sat down directly, pouring himself tea and drinking. Jian Wushuang shook his head and said, "There's no time for relaxation. The last battle left behind many hidden dangers, and I've just recovered to my peak now. Indeed, speaking of the last time, I have to thank you. If it weren't for you, I might have perished." Elder Mukin picked up his teacup, and he and Jian Wushuang drank a toast with tea instead of wine. Just as the two were chatting, the ancient ship began to shake. Elder Mukin's face instantly turned serious. That damned dragon. Why has it suddenly returned? Elder Mukin's expression changed drastically when he sensed that aura. Jian Wushuang was surprised. Dragon? There's a dragon in this river. He didn't know anything about it. Elder Mukin only discovered the dragon while patrolling the banks of the ancient river. But according to his estimation, that dragon should have gone ashore to lay eggs. Why did it suddenly come back? Jian Wushuang couldn't help but feel astonished at Elder Mukin's reaction. From the aura, Jian Wushuang deduced that the opponent possessed at least the strength of the fifth tribulation. Their divine power was no less than 600,000. This level of strength shouldn't pose much of a problem for the Empress. Moreover, seeing the Empress standing so calmly at the bow of the ship, there shouldn't be any major issues. Jian Wushuang stood up and looked down at the surging river below, curious about the strength of the dragon. At that moment, Wuli rushed out of the cabin and, seeing Jian Wushuang still gazing down at the river, quickly transmitted, "Be careful. Her Majesty's true body isn't on the ancient ship. That dragon is a big trouble." "What?" Jian Wushuang looked incredulously at the Empress's back. Then he glanced at Wu Li, first shocked, then showing a hint of curiosity in his eyes. The Empress's true body wasn't on the ancient ship. That meant the Empress standing at the bow of the ship was just a projection. And he had no idea about it from start to finish. He had no idea, yet Wu Li knew. It was quite strange. But now wasn't the time to dwell on that. Self-preservation was paramount. Master Li, stabilize the ancient ship first, and everyone else, into the cabin. Elder Mukin didn't care about the Empress's projection and began giving orders to everyone. Master Li at this moment also understood, inwardly cursing but still complied. Now that everyone was on the same boat, the Empress didn't say a word. Her true body left, without any prior notice. It was really hard to swallow. And it seemed that only one universe master of the fifth tribulation remained. The others had all followed the Empress outside. Jian Wushuang followed Wu Li directly into the cabin, ignoring what was happening outside. When disaster strikes, the tall ones take the hit. This time, he wouldn't foolishly rush out again. After entering the cabin, Jian Wushuang dared to communicate with Wu Li. From him, Jian Wushuang learned about the Empress's whereabouts. Stealing dragon eggs. A special mission? Jian Wushuang cautiously communicated. Wu Li nodded. Whose mission? Jiu Hu. Hearing this name, Jian Wushuang understood why Wu Li knew about the Empress leaving behind a clone. The luck of their previous team was simply extraordinary. First, Jinchen received a special mission. Then it was Jiu Hu's turn. The qualification token sent by the royal family this time was indeed a huge gain. Sending the Emperor's main body for a task that requires only a few stars, and bringing along several fourth tribulation experts. Jian Wushuang asked curiously. Wu Li shook his head. He really didn't know about this. But if the Empress was bringing so many people, it was probably at least a 4-star special mission. Before Jiu Hu left, he only informed him of this matter and didn't say anything else. At this critical moment, Wu Li didn't dare to ask too much. It looks like we're steadily moving into the top for this time. Wu Li smiled slightly and nodded. They were both delighted that the Empress could enter the top 4. This way, they could also get close to the Wanlu Divine Tree. Let's wait for now. While the people in the cabin were still unaware of what had happened, the ancient river outside was churning with monstrous waves. The dragon egg was stolen. No wonder the dragon was so furious. But this was just the beginning. They could only hope for the Empress now. Originally, Jian Wushuang thought that the dragon only had a divine power of 600,000. From the current situation, he underestimated this dragon. Just after laying eggs, it could still be so powerful. Perhaps at its peak, it already had the strength of a half-step sixth tribulation. Even the Empress needed to bring along several fourth tribulation experts to steal the dragon egg, indicating that she didn't have much confidence alone. Boom! The ancient ship shook once again. It seemed like there was something underneath the ancient ship's bottom. The entire ancient ship was on the verge of capsizing. The patriarch of the Li family, who maintained the ancient ship, wore a deeply troubled expression. He was barely holding on. The dragon, burning its essence, aimed to destroy the ancient ship. A few more collisions and the ancient ship would disintegrate. Without the support of the ancient ship, he would have to flee for his life, let alone others. With the Empress still not returning, he could only relay through voice transmission to Wu Li, indicating that he couldn't hold on much longer and to be prepared to escape at any moment. Your Majesty, you need to be faster. Elder Mukin gritted his teeth, preparing to make the final decision. Jian Wushuang leaned against the wall, feeling somewhat strange seeing Elder Mukin in agony. If the ancient ship couldn't hold on, then everyone should just escape separately. There was no need to hesitate. The Third Tribulation Realm Universe Masters in the cabin were originally just cannon fodder, their only purpose being to try their luck and serve as tools for missions. Even if they were to fall, Elder Mukin didn't need to be so indecisive. Among these Universe Masters, only a few were members of royal families. More of them were ancestors of family forces. Once they fell, not only would they be finished, but their families would also be doomed. They had always courted danger for riches and honor, so they couldn't blame anyone else. Wushuang, let's escape together later. It's better to have someone to watch each other's back. Wu Li calmly transmitted his voice to Jian Wushuang. He saw the situation most clearly. He knew they couldn't hold on for much longer, and the Empress wouldn't return for a while. The dragon's lair wasn't far from here. With the Empress's speed, she could quickly return. As for why she didn't come back to save them, perhaps it was because of the mission that they couldn't return. Or perhaps, this dragon was intentionally sent by the Empress to sacrifice them to divert its attention and accomplish the mission. That's why Elder Mukin's expression was so grim. But in order for the Yu Kingdom to advance further, they could only sacrifice them now. Escape! Jian Wushuang's expression changed as he felt the ancient ship beginning to collapse. First, he communicated with Wu Li, then with a single hand he directly pulled Princess Jinshan over. But when he pulled her over, he realized she was also just a clone. Jian Wushuang cursed inwardly. Ignoring the others, he directly broke open the cabin, scanned around, and rushed towards the giant wave ahead. Wu Li followed closely behind him. Wait for this old man. Elder Mukin knew that Jian Wushuang's strength was extraordinary, perhaps even stronger than the patriarch of the Li family, so he immediately decided to escape with Jian Wushuang. But the others were lost. Scattered, they didn't even know where to flee. Seeing no hope, the patriarch of the Li family led a strong member of his clan and also rushed towards Jian Wushuang's direction. At this moment, they could only face the giant wave and flee forward. Jian Wushuang plunged into the giant wave first. The sky was already filled with thunderstorms, making it impossible to escape through the air. They could only depart from the riverbed. But the dragon was also lurking there. After the ancient ship exploded and collapsed, many universe masters, who hadn't yet escaped, were turned into smoke by the dragon's thunderstorm domain. More than 20 universe masters died instantly. Especially the other two emperors, they died a miserable death. No one went to rescue them, and they couldn't be saved anyway. Jian Wushuang led the escape, diving with Jin Cheng into the depths of the ancient riverbed. Because of their quick reaction, they avoided the attack from the dragon. Behind him, Wu Li ran even faster than the head of the Li family. None of them were foolish. They understood the danger. Who would dare to confront it head-on at this moment? It would be suicidal. The Empress was still able to fight. Even with a few universe masters of the Fourth Tribulation joining forces, there was a chance of victory. But having only one reluctant member of the Li family wasn't nearly enough. Jian Wushuang could tell that the vitality of the Li family's head was strong, and his power was not low. If he were to fight desperately, he could still sustain the ancient ship. However, as the head of the family, he wasn't fighting alone. If he fell, the Li family would be finished. The so-called 10 major families of Yu Kingdom actually had weak foundations. Like the Li family, although they had produced a universe master of the Sixth Tribulation, that ancestor had long since fallen, leaving only 2/5 scattered tribulation experts in the family now. As the strongest combat force of the family, how could he dare to risk his life? And the heads of other families had already fallen. Their families would decline as well. Relying solely on scattered tribulation experts couldn't sustain a family. Jian Wushuang naturally understood this and harbored no resentment towards anyone. He just felt that the Empress's actions this time were somewhat excessive. Completing a special mission was fine. Not informing them of the reason was also acceptable. For the sake of secrecy, for safety. All understandable. But why lure the dragon here? Drawing the tiger away from the mountain? Reluctant to part with the child? Unable to catch the wolf? This was truly harming their own children. Princess Jincheng was still on the ancient ship. At this moment, following Jian Wushuang, she still looked puzzled, unaware of what was happening. She could only follow Jian Wushuang in a confused escape. Family? Jian Wushuang shook his head. What was even more ridiculous was the so-called glory. The glory of a family was linked to its strength. Without strength, even in the strongest family, you were insignificant, liable to be abandoned at any time. Better to fight alone, unburdened. Only by following this path could one become the strongest. No wonder ruler Yunji has become the universe master at the Seventh Tribulation realm, while the Empress remains at the Fifth Tribulation. That's the difference in their ambitions. Before becoming the universe master at the Seventh Tribulation, or perhaps after attaining that status, Queen Yunji never interfered in the affairs of the daughter kingdom. It was as if being a country's ruler was merely a formality. She cared little for power or prestige. Her sole focus was on cultivation, and it led to such remarkable achievements. Then there's the universe master at the Seventh Tribulation from the ancient Wood sect. Even in the face of significant events like the Holy Assembly, they remained unseen. Always adventuring in foreign realms, keeping an extremely low profile. On the other hand, their sect master was quite the opposite, overly conspicuous due to being stuck at the scattered tribulation with no room for advancement, only a pursuit of power left. Yet, they ended up falling into Babiti's clutches, now turned into a puppet. Absolutely ridiculous. Getting stronger has no shortcuts. Jian Wushuang had always believed this. To become powerful, one must exert absolute effort and diligence. Without hard work, only scheming and shortcuts, one would eventually have to pay the price. Glancing at the bewildered Jincheng, he suddenly felt pity for him. Despite his affluent background, he lacked true freedom. Forced into marriage with someone he didn't love. And now even being used as a pawn by his own mother. Mukin, that big fool, even deliberately kept it from him. That's what infuriated Jian Wushuang the most. So much so that when it came time to escape, he didn't even bother acknowledging him. At least a heads up on matters concerning life and death would have been appreciated. They fled aimlessly, devoid of direction. They didn't know where to go. Underneath this ancient river, it resembled a continent. Numerous tribes inhabited it. Beasts roamed freely. The sky was barricaded by thunderstorms, and even as they delved into the river's depths, they encountered equally formidable beasts. They could only suppress their breath and continue to dive deeper. Where are we going? Jean Chun surveyed the breathtaking scenery of the riverbed. The more beautiful something appeared, the more danger it often concealed. Jian Wushuang swiftly pulled Jean Chun behind him and exclaimed loudly, "Be careful!" A red tentacle shot out from the water grass, carrying a certain toxin that, if Emperor were to come into contact with it, would instantly prove fatal. Sharp tentacles lunged towards Jian Wushuang's chest, prompting him to roar angrily and lift the arm of the candle dragon, swatting away the tentacle's attack with a single hand. Dragging Xianxia along, they didn't venture deeper into the riverbed, but instead fled towards the chaotic pile ahead. Now wasn't the time to rest. The dragon might catch up at any moment. Other savage beasts lurked here, and engaging them would only slow them down. As they fled, Jian Wushuang reminded Wu Li not to lag behind. The tentacle they just encountered was definitely a beast at the fourth tribulation. Wu Li couldn't afford to die. As for the fate of Elder Mukin and the others, he couldn't concern himself with that. Startled by the message, Wu Li increased his speed once more. The danger of this sacred assembly far exceeded his expectations. He had initially thought that with his strength, he could easily rank in the middle and survival wouldn't be an issue. Yet since arriving in the infinite great world, whether it was encountering the special life forms at the start or the strength of the celestial wolf clan, he found himself outmatched. Several times he almost revealed his true strength. His trump card differed from Jian Wushuang's. Once exposed, he feared that the outside powerhouses wouldn't sit idly by. Even the people of the ancient Wood sect might make an exception and enter the infinite great world to hunt him down. So, he couldn't use it unless absolutely necessary. For now, he just needed to follow Jian Wushuang. He acknowledged Jian Wushuang's strength. Apart from the Empress, Jian Wushuang was undoubtedly the strongest. Even stronger than a universe master at the fourth tribulation. This information was imparted to him by the mysterious figure within him. As long as he followed Jian Wushuang, there was hope for survival. Having chosen Jian Wushuang, he didn't care about anything else. Following him was the right choice. Upon reaching the pile of rocks, Jian Wushuang hesitated for a moment before plunging in. The stones were massive, with narrow crevices. Inside felt more like a maze. These stones seemed to have fallen from the mountains on both sides of the ancient river. Indeed, they could block many of the colossal beasts lurking at the riverbed. As he stepped in, Wu Li followed closely behind. Others capable of escaping also rushed in after Jian Wushuang, like headless flies. However, there weren't many survivors left. The patriarch of the Li family, along with the remnants of 4 universe masters, joined Jian Wushuang and the others. Only 9 remained, losing half of their manpower in an instant. The blow was quite significant. Once inside the pile of rocks, Jian Wushuang finally breathed a sigh of relief. In a natural stalactite cave, their figure came to a halt. It was the interior of a massive rock. There was no water inside, incredibly smooth all around, with water droplets continuously dripping from above. Crash! Jian Wushuang had just steadied his figure when the water surface inside the giant rock was consecutively broken, and several figures rushed in together. Though he ran fast, the people behind him weren't slow either. Because Jian Wushuang still had to think about escaping in that direction, those following him didn't need to use their brains. Now it seemed he had indeed chosen the right person. Running to this place, he shouldn't encounter that dragon anymore. This pile of rocks wasn't just an ordinary pile of stones. It looked more like countless towering mountains piled together. Breaking through that dragon wouldn't be so easy. Brother Mukin, you need to explain what's going on here. The head of the Li family stared darkly at Elder Mukin. If it weren't for the special nature of this place, allowing outsiders to observe their every move, he would have slaughtered Elder Mukin. Although the head of the Li family was angry, he could still control his emotions. After all, this time it wasn't their own people who died. His clansmen had been brought out by him. But the luck of other strong individuals wasn't as good. The Jiang family, though they didn't have a universe master of the fourth tribulation, they had 4 universe masters of the third tribulation presiding over them. This time in the sacred assembly, 3 of the Jiang family's 4 guardians came. But just now, 2 of them fell in an instant. Jiang Zhan, the second of the Jiang family, couldn't contain his anger. Mukin, do you know that this time, you caused the death of my eldest brother and 4th brother? Why isn't it you who died? Jiang Zhan directly rushed forward, grabbing Elder Mukin by his collar, his eyes filled with murderous intent. Seeing this scene, Jian Wushuang sneered inwardly, having no intention of helping. Elder Mukin deserved this. He should have spoken earlier. If he had spoken earlier, not so many people would have died. Now, half of them were dead in an instant. The remaining people could only survive in this stalactite cave. Jiangzhen, don't forget the agreement. Coming to the sacred assembly is to assist Her Majesty the Empress. Do you think only your Jiang family lost people? Elder Mukin retorted, pushing Jiangzhen away. In reality, he himself felt that what the Empress did this time was somewhat excessive. Chilled the hearts of everyone. Since ancient times, imperial emperors have been the most ruthless. To the Empress, wiping out family influences entirely was for the best. That's how imperial power could remain secure. But Mukin was just a lazy prince, albeit an elder of the Seven-Star sect, and his heart wasn't hardened enough. Though he put on a tough front, there was some guilt festering deep within. Brother Li Shang, at this point it's not about decisions. I didn't expect that dragon to suddenly attack the ancient ship. The Emperor didn't inform anyone before leaving. There must have been hidden reasons. Elder Mukin explained reluctantly. But the head of the Li family wasn't easily fooled. He retorted coldly, "So many people died, and you're just brushing it off with 'at this point'?" At this moment, even the universe master of the Qingyun sect wasn't siding with Mukin. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang pulled Jinshan aside. Wu Li had long since distanced himself, ignoring Mukin. At this moment, Mukin found himself isolated by everyone. Though he couldn't act directly, but they couldn't just keep hiding here. When they left, someone had to lead the way. Some threats needed to be faced. With his tough facade crumbling, Mukin sighed. "Everyone, we haven't even entered the inner circle yet. We can't fight amongst ourselves. Mukin, we're not making things difficult for you. Since it's the Emperor's wish, why don't you lead us to find her now, reunite with her, and then continue on the journey? What do you think?" Li Shang spread his hands, seemingly opening up the discussion. But in reality, he was putting Mukin in a difficult spot. Find the Empress? Where to even start? Mukin clearly had no idea. "Dao friends, what was our original intention?" Mukin began to change the subject, continuing, "We are here for the glory of your kingdom. This action by the Emperor is crucial. What we need to do now is support her. Once the Emperor becomes the Holy Maiden, I don't think I need to explain the benefits to you, right?" On the side, Jiangzhen couldn't help but sneer when he heard this. "You've got some nerve. All the benefits go to your royal family first. I won't say much about that, but you want us to take the fall. How do you explain that? Opportunities always require sacrificing some individuals. Since all of you are still alive and well, we must continue to fight." Mukin tried to blur the issue, but the more he spoke, the more absurd it became. Jiangzhen's eyes twitched with anger as he cursed. "Then why don't you go die?" Seeing everyone bickering, Princess Jincheng stepped forward. "Elders, may I have a word?" Jincheng's eyes were resolute as she stared at everyone. Jian Wushuang wanted to intervene, but it was too late. Her interference would only breed animosity. It would be better to say nothing. This matter was originally Mukin's problem. It's better to let Mukin take the blame alone. As long as the Empress returns, everything will no longer be a problem. Do these people dare to question the Empress? Now that Jincheng has stepped forward, drawing attention to herself, all eyes are on her. "I would have forgotten about you both if you hadn't spoken up." Jiangzhen turned to Jian Wushuang, ignoring Jincheng. Jian Wushuang sighed inwardly. Trouble follows where the wind blows. If he didn't know Jincheng's character, he might have suspected this fool of scheming against him. Pointing at Jian Wushuang, Jiangzhen spoke. "When we were escaping, you were the fastest, and you came straight to this pile of rocks. Did you already know about this?" With these words, Li Shang also looked over. Mukin remained silent as if he were dead, not speaking. "Uncle Jiang, I didn't even know about the ambush, let alone." Jinshan's words were cut off by Jiangzhen. Jiangzhen shouted, "You little girl, you have no right to speak here. If you don't give me an explanation today, don't blame me for turning hostile." He didn't dare to act against Mukin, but he wouldn't hesitate to act against Jian Wushuang. If they didn't do something today, wouldn't they become mere cannon fodder? allowing the royal family to oppress them in the future. Enough! Jian Wushuang could feel the heat of the situation about to engulf him, so he had to step forward to take charge. His aura shook, a hidden force erupted. In this narrow space, his divine power burst forth briefly, forcing the crowd back several steps. A crimson divine power surrounded Jian Wushuang's body, and the beast god mark on his forehead became even more dazzling. You want explanations? Go ask Her Majesty. What's the point of all this bickering? His voice resonated with a deep, commanding tone, weighing heavily on everyone's chest. Xianxia had heard about Jian Wushuang's immense strength long before, but witnessing it firsthand was another matter entirely. Now, seeing Jian Wushuang's power surpass even Li Shang's, he found himself unable to voice his thoughts. Seeing Xianxia silent, Jian Wushuang turned his gaze towards Li Shang, his eyes flashing with killing intent. Li Shang stood his ground, feeling the threat emanating from Jian Wushuang. He knew that one more word out of place would provoke Jian Wushuang into action. Survival was paramount at the moment. Initially, he had thought to leverage this situation to investigate the matters of the royal family. But now, with the empress absent, a mere emperor like Jian Wushuang could still intimidate them. All right, since everything's settled, listen to what I have to say. Jian Wushuang withdrew his beast god power, casually finding a rock to sit on. He spoke calmly. Right now, our priority is to rendezvous with the emperor. The ancient river is teeming with countless savage beasts, many at the level of the fourth tribulation realm. It's not something we can easily traverse. Mu Chun, seeing Jian Wushuang handle both Li Shang and Xianxia, cleared his throat and chimed in. Nephew Wushuang is right. Meeting with Her Majesty is paramount. Don't you know where Her Majesty is? Jian Wushuang didn't bother to hide his displeasure this time. Being abandoned earlier and the deliberate concealment of the Empress's whereabouts on the ancient ship had left him feeling deceived. He hadn't settled scores over this matter yet. Li Shang and Xianxia noticed a rift between Jian Wushuang and Mukin. They couldn't discern if it was genuine or a facade. If it was genuine, then Mukin might be the sole bearer of the truth. I've tried, but I can't reach my mother, Jinshin exclaimed anxiously. At these words, everyone took a deep breath. They couldn't even contact their own kin. How were they supposed to find her? Jian Wushuang knew the Empress was probably on a special mission. It was normal not to reach her now. All they could do was wait. Wait for the Empress to complete her special mission and come back to them. But they didn't know how long this wait would be. When he completed the Emperor's mission initially, it only took him the time to burn an incense stick. If it weren't for the complicated task, a simple battle might not have even taken that long. And it was a 5-star mission. Even the mission Juhu received, a universe-level 4-star, would likely take a long time, especially with the Empress intentionally diverting the attention of the dragon. The task was definitely not simple. The time needed, perhaps short if only a few days, but even 100 years wouldn't be surprising. Jian Wushuang couldn't afford to wait for 100 years. 100 years might not count as time in the outside world. But here, in this place, 100 years could mean encountering countless savage beasts. Even the stalactite caves here weren't absolutely safe. If they encountered a savage beast attack, they would have to flee like headless flies. And that dragon was still eyeing them, could find them at any moment. In the past, he thought he could face the fifth tribulations with a single battle. But here it was the infinite great world. Whether it was the universe master or these savage beasts, none of them were simple, and everyone had their own hidden cards. Not just him, others too, and the savage beasts as well. He couldn't judge the strength of his opponents based on common standards anymore. Just like Kuelong, he initially thought the opponent's strength was at most 600,000. But in the end, at the cost of losing his sanity, he burst out with 680,000 divine power, and that was just a universe master at the fourth tribulation. As for a universe master at the fifth tribulation, let alone mentioning. Even the top universe masters at the fifth tribulations had a minimum of 600,000 divine power, and with just a casual burst they could exceed 700,000. Take that dragon for example. Although it didn't have the power of the origin source universe, its bloodline power was extremely strong, possibly descended from a true dragon. Even the Empress feared enough to lead it away. With just them, a bunch of insignificant beings, if they were really caught by the dragon, they probably wouldn't even know how they died. This place was still too close to where the ancient ship was destroyed. And the aura of these human strongmen was very conspicuous at the bottom of the ancient river. The riverbed was filled with the aura of savage beasts. Even if they hid well, they would still be discovered. Jian Wushuang was confident in his ability to deceive others, but not everyone shared his skill. Instead of waiting to be cornered, he believed in taking proactive measures. That was his plan. The supreme secret technique of the transformation Tao. Jian Wushuang began to calculate in his mind. Regardless of others, he had to ensure the safety of Wu Li and Jinchen at least. He had promised Queen Yunji to protect her. This was his chance to repay the favor. Although Wu Li was more crucial, the other party also held significant secrets. Jian Wushuang could feel the vitality emanating from Wu Li, which had only grown stronger since entering the infinite great world. That power didn't belong to him. It was someone else's secret, and he dared not inquire further. He could only prepare for contingencies. Afterlife conversion pill. After a long silence, he uttered the name. It was a secret technique of the transformation Tao, spoken of in legends from the Moro spacetime. He had heard of it from the inheritance of the first true king. His own transformation Tao had evolved from the eternal variations of the three kings, with some modifications to become the eternal ancient transformation. Now, he aimed to reverse the transformation Tao and turn it into a pill formula. By refining the afterlife conversion pill, others could conceal their human aura and blend in underwater. However, it would take time. Originally a legendary secret technique of the transformation Tao, mastering it would require time. Moreover, he needed to reverse the technique into a pill formula and then refine it into a pill, which would take a full cycle, 10 days at the earliest. If the Empress responded in 10 days, it would be ideal. It was his way of being prepared for any outcome. If there was still no word from the Empress by then, they would proceed with refining the conversion pill, and everyone would transform into demons together. Only this way could he survive. Jian Wushuang laid out the entire situation. He didn't care if these people opposed it or had any opinions. After all, he wasn't prepared to refine for these people anyway. Transformation pill? Li Sheng furrowed his brow slightly, asking cautiously, "Friend Wushuang, if one were to undergo transformation, can they revert back, turning into a demon?" This was something many people found hard to accept. Jian Wushuang didn't conceal anything either, and replied directly, "The possibility is very low, but even if you transform into demons, your origin source universe won't change, and your divine power might even enhance because of it. How confident are you?" Li Sheng gritted his teeth, as if he had made a decision. Compared to his own life, becoming a demon didn't matter. After all, their strength wouldn't change. Not even 30%. Jian Wushuang extended 3 fingers, then continued, "I still need a lot of materials from savage beasts, preferably ancient savage beasts at the level of the 4th tribulation realm." Before the pill formula was calculated, he had already arranged the task of gathering materials. Upon hearing this, they were astonished. Only 30%? Humph, even that 30% depends on whether the materials from savage beasts are up to par. If the materials are too poor, there's no hope for that 30%. I need time to prepare the pill formula now. You all have only 10 days. If you don't have enough materials, then you'll all be in deep trouble. Jian Wushuang half-threatened. It's not surprising he's ruthless. It's just that his abilities are limited. And there's Elder Mukin, that big unreliable guy. If he had been informed earlier about the Empress's movements, he could have prepared in advance. Wu Li also had questions. The Empress had fled without informing him. Now, with only them remaining, they could only fend for themselves. "I'll figure something out about the materials." Li Sheng finally compromised. He had 2 younger members of his family behind him, the hope of their lineage. Glancing back at the 2 inexperienced juniors behind him, Li Sheng's tone softened as he continued, "I can't handle the materials alone. I need others to cooperate. Of course, besides Princess Jinchen, you can choose whoever you want, Jian Wushuang generously declared, waving his hand and handing over the authority to Li Shang. Surveying the rest, Li Shang concluded, Wu Li, Mukin, Jiang Zhan, and this friend from Qingyun's sect, come with me. The remaining 4 included 2 universe masters from the Li family, aside from Jian Wushuang and Princess Jinchen. Upon hearing that the patriarch wouldn't take them, the 2 Li family juniors, a boy and a girl, couldn't help but step forward, but words failed them at the last moment. They had been too well protected in Yu Kingdom. Even during the emperor's reign, they had the protection of the scattered tribulation experts from the family during their ventures outside. Now, facing absolute suppression, they had no confidence whatsoever. Their divine powers were both under 400,000. Their ability to preserve themselves in the depths of the ancient river was too weak. If they were to go out, they might not survive 3 days. Li Shang glanced at them, a rare warmth appearing in his eyes, as he calmly said, Don't worry, stay here and assist Wushuang's friend. Follow their lead. It was a skillful way of putting it. To Jian Wushuang, the 2 universe masters left behind were no better than the soldiers at the bottom of the river. Keeping them here would only be a burden. Initially, he had thought of reducing the manpower during this trip for materials. That way, he could better manage these people and stall for time while waiting for the Empress. The infinite great world was nothing but a colossal arena. Not only did they have to contend with various forces, but they also had to contend with the native powerhouses within the boundless world. Those ancient beasts, special life forms, and even some ruins and forbidden areas posed great dangers. In such a world, to stay ahead, they needed to push themselves to the limit. Those with weak strength would promptly give up when faced with danger. Bringing the emperor along was just to make up the numbers. If they were lucky, they might receive a mission. For example, Jinchen had received a 5-star mission. Even if he fell this time, it wouldn't be a loss. Although Jian Wushuang didn't agree in his heart, faced with reality, he had to accept it. Even he himself had tacitly accepted the law of survival of the fittest. No one wanted to be a burden. Everyone wanted to be carefree. Alright, you'd better kill 3 ancient beasts at the level of 4th tribulation within 10 days, or 100 ancient beasts at the level of 3rd tribulation. Make sure to collect all the materials needed for the transformation pill. Don't even miss their fur and skin. Jian Wushuang actually didn't know the recipe for the conversion pill, but just to be safe, he instructed them to collect all the materials. When he refined them later, he would use what he needed, and what he didn't need would be fine anyway. He wasn't the one going to kill those ancient beasts. Li Shang didn't say much, just nodded. The others took a deep breath, then one by one jumped into the water pool. Jiang Zhan also showed some understanding of the situation and didn't say much. Obediently following Li Shang, the 5 set off together. Jian Wushuang sat cross-legged, closing his eyes, in the origin source starry sky, floating in his own universe, feeling extremely comfortable. Ancient evolution. He clenched his fists, continuously stimulating his origin. Ah! The powerful starry sky energy instantly covered his whole body. His strength increased several times over. Phew! The greatness of eternal ancient transformation lay in the power of the starry sky. The transformation technique was only an auxiliary function. If he used the power of all things to perform the eternal ancient transformation, it was not much different from the eternal ancient transformation. The amplified power had its limits. The key to the eternal ancient transformation lay in the power of the starry sky. But what was the key to this transformation? Jian Wushuang retracted the eternal transformation and, after returning to normal, began to peruse some of the secret techniques related to the previous transformation. Seemed leisurely, but it was quite challenging. 10 days was too short. He had to hurry. This place could be discovered at any time. While he was in seclusion, a bloody battle erupted deep in the ancient river. Li Shang led his men from the west bank of the Gu River to the east bank, even spilling onto the shores. This massacre quickly attracted several beasts of the 4th tribulation level. Originally, their plan was to quickly kill hundreds of 3rd tribulation level beasts. That was quite simple for them. They just feared provoking those ancient fourth tribulation level beasts. The third tribulation level beasts at the bottom of the river were actually not very powerful. Their divine power was only a little over 300,000. Elder Mukin and Wu Li could easily kill them with a flick of their hands. Even dealing with these beasts together was more than enough. But that was single combat. They were not facing one or two, but dozens surrounding them. Although Li Shang was powerful, he couldn't take advantage of dozens of beasts at the same time. After a day, they only managed to kill a dozen or so. And they even provoked several fourth tribulation beasts. Just as they were preparing for a desperate fight, thunderclouds appeared overhead. It's a dragon. As per the original plan, scatter and flee. They had anticipated encountering a dragon long ago, but they hadn't expected it so soon. The 5 of them scattered and fled. The domain of the dragon had just arrived, and before the real body of the dragon arrived, they had vanished. But as long as they were in this domain, they couldn't escape the dragon's pursuit. You damned human cultivators, you shall all die. The real form of the dragon descended, immediately targeting Li Shang, who was the fastest to flee. The massive dragon tail swept directly towards Li Shang. Fortunately, Li Shang was fast enough to dodge it smoothly. The dragon tail struck the stone wall of the riverbed, directly shattering the mountain. Many unlucky beasts were instantly obliterated. You can't escape. The dragon transformed into a human form, its speed increased, and it rushed to the nearest universe master of the Qingyun sect. With one claw, it crushed the opponent's origin source. A fifth tribulation realm powerhouse killing those of the third tribulation was like adults bullying children. There were no secret techniques involved, just simple and brutal one-hit kills. It was like when Jian Wushuang used the Wanjie sword to kill those third tribulation universe masters. Feeling the fall of his comrades, Li Shang's face turned ashen, his heart filled with despair. However, there was no time for him to dwell on it. He seized the opportunity and unleashed his divine power, exerting all his strength to break out of the domain. Others, too, showed no mercy at this moment, bursting forth with all their might to break free from the domain. Exhausting nearly 30% of his divine power in the process, he desperately escaped, but his own combat strength plummeted to its lowest. Just as he broke out of the domain, he encountered a savage beast at the fourth tribulation. Despair etched across his face. He roared in anger. Even if I fall, I refuse to perish at the hands of you beasts. Ah! With clenched fists, he ignited all his divine power. His entire being transformed into a blazing sun, unleashing boundless divine power. The savage beast at the fourth tribulation hastily retreated, cursing angrily. I haven't even made a move yet. Why are you in such a hurry? Yet he too met his demise. Little did he expect that he would choose to self-destruct before his death. His death inadvertently bought some time for the others. Taking advantage of the situation, Mukin made his way ashore, disappearing into the jungle of the mountains. Jian Wushuang's plan was too idealistic. Or perhaps they had underestimated the situation. In the span of a day, among the 5 of them, 2 had perished. Mukin fled far away ashore. Wu Li's whereabouts were unknown amidst the chaos. Only Li Shang, dragging his heavily injured body, returned to the chaotic pile of rocks. Spurt! As soon as he surfaced from the water, Li Shang spat out a mouthful of blood from his chest. He collapsed in a heap directly onto the ground. Jinshin was startled and quickly stood up. The 2 universe masters from the Li family hurriedly stepped forward to examine the injuries of their ancestor. Jian Wushuang remained unfazed, continuing to search for information on the formula for the conversion pill. It was Wu Li's absence that troubled him. He tried to contact him through voice transmission, but to no avail. Fortunately, he could still sense the karmic presence of the other party. They probably hadn't died yet. In hindsight, he shouldn't have let Wu Li go. Things were getting worse now. The sacred assembly was even more dangerous than he had imagined. Actually, they didn't need to be this exhausted. If the Empress were here, within this ancient river, as long as there were no 6th tribulation savage beasts or special life forms, they could almost walk sideways. But unfortunately, the Empress had abandoned them halfway. Sigh! Jian Wushuang sighed, opening his eyes and glancing at Li Shang's injuries. He gathered a trace of life force in his palm, hesitated for a moment, then gave up. He couldn't save people. If the life force were discovered by powerful observers from the outside world, it would be over. Only a few paid attention to Jian Wushuang and his companions now. The gaze of the formidable was mostly fixed on the Sure Kingdom's contingent. On the outskirts of the infinite great world, where danger was sparse, his few battles had garnered some attention. However, with all teams now entering the periphery of the infinite great world, and even venturing deeper into it, battles at the level of Fifth Tribulation had occurred hundreds of times. There were hardly any who still cared about the exploits of an emperor. But the lack of attention on Jian Wushuang didn't mean that no one was interested in others from the Yu Kingdom. Take the Empress, for instance. That Empress of the Yu Kingdom is quite ruthless, abandoning even her own daughter and brother. Many powerful beings kept a watchful eye on the Empress of the Yu Kingdom. Being a popular candidate naturally drew considerable attention. In the radiance of the Empress, Jian Wushuang seemed somewhat insignificant. The Empress was truly dazzling now, secluded within a special hidden realm. It was a special mission entrusted to her by Jihu, of cosmic-level danger. Even with the Empress's immense strength, caution was paramount. Moreover, this time she faced a task equivalent to 5 stars. Once accomplished, her place among the top 4 would be secured, the prerequisite for contending for the final position of the Holy Maiden. For this position, Empress Fengqian had prepared for countless epochs. As her peers advanced to the level of 7th Tribulation Universe Masters, she remained merely a 5th Tribulation Universe Master. Such a gap in strength was unbearable to someone with such strong pride. This time, not only did she aim to become the Holy Maiden, but she also intended to make a breakthrough to the 6th Tribulation level in the eyes of countless others. By then, her name would resound throughout the ancient Wood continent, elevating the status of the Yu Kingdom to new heights. This was not only her wish but also the expectation of the ancestors within the royal family. For how many years had it been since the Yu Kingdom produced a 6th Tribulation's Universe Master? This time it must be seized. Now it seemed that the Empress had indeed seized it. In that secret realm, she first stole the dragon egg, and then used it to lure out a special life form. That was the core of this mission. Almost every special task could involve a bunch of strong individuals. Her task was not to kill that special life form, but to help the other seek revenge. To assist the other in unifying that secret realm. This difficulty was significant. It wasn't as simple as killing 1 or 2 Fifth Tribulation savage beasts. It was about waging war in this secret realm for a period of time. It might waste time, but once the mission was completed, she would obtain the pioneer map and the treasure of becoming a holy maiden. These were worth her effort. She just hadn't expected how miserable those abandoned people would be now. Li Shang fell into a deep sleep. Although he had special treasures, it would still take some time for him to recover. Fortunately, when he returned, he brought materials from dozens of savage beasts. These materials provided Jian Wushuang with an opportunity to practice. Although the alchemy method was not perfect, he could still try to practice. He didn't expect to succeed in one try. He couldn't be too impatient. Otherwise, all previous efforts would be in vain. You two, don't just stand around. Help me suck out the demonic energy from those materials. Jian Wushuang commanded the remaining 2 universe masters. He alone was a bit overwhelmed. Jinshin could only hurry to assist, unable to help much. Several days passed. He failed several times in succession. The only successful attempt had the opposite effect of what he had expected from the medicine. It turned the savage beasts into human medicines. He could only start over. But now the materials were running low. Sending those 2 universe masters forward would be sending them to their deaths. This time he had to go himself. You two stay here and wait. I'll set up a barrier. Once touched, I'll receive a message and rush back immediately. Don't go out. If Wuli comes back, tell him not to come in first. Wait for me underwater. Jian Wushuang instructed, then plunged into the pool. Below the water pool, navigating through the jumble of rocks, He eventually reached the depths of the riverbed. To be on the safe side, he didn't stray too far. He could only hunt some wild beasts in the vicinity. That dragon should have gone far away. But he couldn't afford to be too careless. The dragon's speed was fast. Even if it was far from him, it could quickly find him. However, his divine power was different from others. He could completely restrain it. This way, the dragon wouldn't detect him. Quickly searching for targets because of his experience in refining pills, he knew which kind of wild beasts were more suitable. Let's start with you. Jian Wushuang suppressed his breath, turning himself into a blue stream of air, drifting towards a strange-looking beast hidden in the distant water grass. This savage beast had a divine power of up to 400,000, nearly breaking through to the fourth tribulation realm. Its intelligence was no different from that of ordinary people. But facing Jian Wushuang, it didn't sense any danger at all. Jian Wushuang silently appeared behind it. Swish! In an instant, his breath soared to 500,000. His hand forming a blade, and with a single slash, he directly split the strange savage beast into two halves, its origin source and divine power instantly weakening. It died without knowing who struck it. Could be considered a peaceful end. Jian Wushuang waved his hand, collected the remains of the savage beast, and once again transformed his figure into a stream of air, searching for the next target. According to his plan, gathering 10 heads would be enough. With another 10 savage beasts, he could almost refine the conversion pill. As long as he had the transformation pill, he would take Jinqin and leave this place. He just didn't know where Wu Li had gone. But as long as the other party wasn't dead, he could find him. Guided by karma, the other party wasn't too far from him. As for the missing Mukin, he could sense that the other party should be on the riverbank. But his breath was continuously weakening, sometimes present, sometimes not. There was a high probability that he was trapped in some ruins. Whether he could survive depended on his own luck. He hadn't intended to rescue them. After the way they had betrayed him this time, Elder Mukin thought they deserved their fate, even if it meant his own death. It was a perfect opportunity to offer himself up to the Yu Kingdom. Deep in the valley far from the riverbank, Elder Mukin found himself truly trapped within an ancient relic. Venturing into this place recklessly, he suddenly found himself unable to leave. Furthermore, his divine power was cut off, leaving him utterly powerless. Here, he was as if calling upon the heavens with no response, invoking the earth with no answer. He could only grit his teeth and continue forward. Initially, he had hoped to test his luck. If, by chance, there were no dangers in the valley, he could safely endure until the Empress returned. But luck wasn't on his side. He hadn't gone far before stumbling upon an ancient relic of a sect. Though only remnants of its formations remained, with his meager strength, he couldn't hope to break through. Instead, he found himself sinking deeper and deeper. Stopping was out of the question, yet he couldn't resign himself to this fate. He wanted to take one more gamble.